everyone, and welcome to day 3 of bLU Talk's Amplify Your Message. I've been trying lighting, and as you can tell, it's not really working. I get like mirrors going and like 3 lamps in my face and another one over here, one behind my head. I need an expert. But that's what we're here to talk about, is all of these different experts and all of their areas of expertise and their message and why they want to share it, how they share it, why they've chosen those different ways to share it. Today, I'm joined again by one of my favorite people, Beth Ravelli.
Hi,
Beth,
Laura.
can you tell us just a little bit about you so that we know where you're coming from for your questions today?
Yeah, sure. So location-wise, I'm in California, like the other end of the world from you. And it's totally true. But yet we are on the same wavelength. So I am Beth Ravelli with Beth Ravelli Coaching, and I call myself a motherhood story coach. So I work with women, just like people might work with women who are money coaches, or I'm sorry, with people who are money coaches. Like money coaches are people who help you work through your stories, your interpretations of money to help you find abundance in your life. I pretty much do the same thing for people with their motherhood story. So all the interpretations and the stories that people have gathered up over the years from a very young age, they end up carrying those with them, and they don't really realize it because we don't talk about it much in our culture. So that's what I do. I work with women to clear all of that out so they can have the motherhood path that they envision.
I love that.
Thanks.
So we do have our guests behind the scenes. So Lisa, I'm going to bring you up to stage. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Yay. Welcome to the stage, Lisa.
Thank you.
And I love
so
that you
much.
have the same background I used all summer when I was going live from like literally a sunroom that was just kind of like mishmashed together. So very familiar.
Nice. I liked the sunroom, Laura. It was nice.
It was like a little bit of privacy at my parents' house. You're like, So welcome, Lisa. I have been starting all week and for the last few shows with one of my favorite questions, just because we learn a lot about you that we wouldn't normally hear from your story. And here it is. So if you could have 3 words that you would love other people to use to describe you, what might those 3 words be?
Oh my God.
It's playful. Don't worry about it too much.
You know what? My daughter said these to me yesterday, so I'm going to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Courageous,
Ooh.
authentic,
Mm-hmm.
and unconditional love.
Oh, I love
I
that.
cried a lot yesterday.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay, now I want to know why you cried a lot yesterday, if you're willing to share.
You know what, Beth? I love what you do, and you're the first person I've ever heard that does this. Just to let people know, I'm a mindset coach, so I deal with the unconscious belief system and our programming. I am a certified hypnotherapist. I am a master practitioner in NLP, and I help people find their why and their purpose. And in my own personal life and a lot of my clients, one of the biggest wounds is the mother wound. And I will never date a man again unless they've healed their mother wound. It is so traumatizing because when a man, especially in a relationship, doesn't respect women and they're projecting all of their pain onto their partner, there's no place for you to go. There's no win. And so I love what you do. Healing that mother wound is one of the most important things that you can do in your life. So bravo or brava, Beth, because it's really important, beautiful work. And one of the other things I do is I heal inherited ancestral trauma. So your mother could have inherited certain beliefs. Your mother could have inherited, all kinds of karma, if you want to go into some of the metaphysical stuff. Going back generations, I've worked with people going back up to 9 generations. So these belief systems and these traumas can impact you unconsciously. You don't know why you're doing it. You can go into talk therapy and don't have an understanding of where these beliefs come from. And unless you get to the root cause, it can be destabilizing. It can cause paralysis. And it can really be a major source to your problems without knowing how to access it.
Yep.
Oh, yep. So true. We're like, yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Awesome.
okay. The first word that you said today has just been a pattern I feel through the entire weekend at the boot camp, which I was so sad to like not see you as one of the coaches there with me. I was like, no, I miss Lisa.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. You know what? And I wanted to go Friday, and it sounded like Friday was like some of the most stuff that I wanted to learn, and I missed it. And I missed, was it Neil Donald Walsh?
Yeah.
I love him. I just had too much on my plate, but yeah.
That pattern of courage came up all weekend, not just with the attendees, because you just think, okay, yeah, attendees, it's really courageous to be here all weekend, learn all this stuff, put your heart on the line, podcast pitch, like live. That takes all courage. But then it was also the coaches. It was also Corey and his family. There was just so much going on behind the scenes for everyone involved. And yet each and every one of us still showed up, still gave our heart, and we leaned into the fact that we do have this community that cares about us.
Yes.
And that actually wants to be involved. And that's just so rare that I just really appreciated that. So what does courage look like in the work that you do with your clients?
Well, courage is not the absence of fear. And that's something that people need to understand, is that, you know, and I tell this story, it's in my book, where I knew that I was in an unhappy marriage. The last 10 years we stayed together. I was terrified to be alone. I'd been with my ex-husband since I was 19 years old. We met in college. So the idea of being on my own and taking care of myself was terrifying. And so I did a fire walk facilitation program and walked 40 freaking feet of fire.
Wow.
That's graduation. So I literally had to I was terrified. I found out on Sunday night that the following Saturday I was going to be walking 40 feet of red hot coals to graduate. So I never acknowledged all the stuff we did all week long. So all week long, we were walking 7 to 10 feet. We were breaking arrows from our throat. We were we bent rebar, 10-foot piece of rebar from my throat with someone else coming together. I still have that piece of rebar as a memento. Yeah. I walked 4 feet of broken glass without cutting my feet. So I wasn't present that whole week. I didn't acknowledge any of those things that I did until someone grounded me right before my last walk, because they said to me, how much fire have you walked this week? And I was like, 7 to 10 feet. And he said, well, you've already walked over 40 feet, haven't you? I said, yes. And he said, well, this should be a piece of cake. Go. And something in my brain switched. It was like an on-off switch that just, it was insane. And I walked, and it ended up my easiest walk without a scorch. My feet were hot for the day. I had flip-flops on in the car with the air conditioning going on, I won't lie, but I didn't have any marks. And so mindset is everything. Mm-hmm. So I always say the things that I'm most afraid of are the things that I have to do. And so I walk towards it. And every time I turn around, I'm like, okay, I have to do the audio to my book that I launched a year ago, in Every Belief is a Lie. So if you look at the word belief, LIE is in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. So a year ago, I paid for it. I got the instructions. And what happened? I haven't done it yet. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, why am I so afraid to record my voice? I talk all day long. I probably talk more than most people.
I don't know.
So I know that I have to face whatever it is that's preventing me from recording my book. So I have things all day long, every day. And it's like pushing through. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking underwater in slow motion. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I have that sensation. But the more I push through, because if you stay stagnant, that's when the voices come in. That's when you become paralyzed. And that's when you get yourself to a point where you allow your unconscious mind and all those voices to come in and stop you.
Yeah. I was thinking like the journey of an entrepreneur, like that week that you went through is the journey of the entrepreneur. So when you first started,
it's the journey of stupidity, I think.
you could look at it that way, right?
No. It's like of insanity, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. So when you first started, like, what was your biggest fear then? Like, how many years have you been an entrepreneur?
25 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
Wow, you deserve an award.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But it's had many different iterations.
Yeah.
What I do now is very different than when I started, because as I added to my tool chest, it kept changing.
Yeah.
So I wasn't always what I am now. And that was okay, because I look at some of my early videos and I'm like, oh my God, take those down.
Right? Totally. Oh my God. So I'm curious, what was like year 1 and 2? What was the thing that you saw in your way?
Ooh.
I was terrified that I didn't think I knew what I was doing, number one. Because here's the thing, we don't have the ability to see ourselves. It's so easy for me to see other people's problems. That's like my gift.
Yeah.
But when it came to my own, I was like, wait a minute, I can do this so fast for someone else. In like 10 minutes, I can have the answers. But when it came to my own issues, I had roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And that's why a coach is so important. When you're a coach, you really need to have a coach, because they put the mirror up for you. And yeah.
Trying.
Yeah. So I had my own work to do. And I realized that I was only going to get the clients that were at the level that I was at. So if I wanted to get higher level clients, I had to clean up my act, and I had to release all of my blocks, and I had to do my own work so that I could attract the type of people that I really wanted to work with. Because, and Corey Poirier talks about this a lot. Why would you pay someone as a coach who hasn't achieved the level that they're trying to coach you to? Right?
So what was one of the biggest blocks that you had to clear out?
So I grew up with this belief. So going back as a child, I had undiagnosed learning disabilities. So in kindergarten, I was dyslexic. I transposed numbers and letters, and so I couldn't read, but everyone else could read. And that started this snowball effect of, I was in summer school every summer. I was a mediocre student, so I felt worthless. I felt like I wasn't smart, and I was told over and over again that you could never be on your own. You're always going to have to be taken care of. So that was the lie that I took on as my belief. So I learned to give my power away to everyone and everything, any kind of authority. And I was like, okay, they must be right. Okay, they must be right. So I didn't have access to my own authenticity, my own truth, because I was busy listening to other people. And here's the fascinating thing was I became a why coach. It's based on the, for those of you who have seen Simon Sinek, he did his TED Talk on Start Your Why. This fellow, Gary Sanchez, interviewed, saw him speak and said, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to know my why. And Simon said at the time, I don't help people find their why. I tell them why it's important. So Gary went on to interview thousands of people over 10 years and discovered that there's 9 whys. When I did my why, it changed everything for me. It was a game changer because one of the whys is challenge. And I challenge conventional thinking. I think outside the box. When you do that, you don't fit in, you get bullied, you don't feel like you're understood, right? So when you grow up thinking you're in the land of misfit toys and no one understands you, and you're also a visionary. So I see things that other people don't see, and then you're called crazy, right? Yeah. So when I found out that I was a challenge, I was like, oh my God, that's my superpower. So instead of suppressing it and instead of pushing it down, I was like, okay, I'm going to put my purple hair. I don't know if you can see it,
Yes,
my purple
I
hair
love
out
the
there.
purple hair.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to just own it. And when
Yeah.
I owned it, everything changed.
Hmm.
So we have a why, a how, and a what. And it's this 10-minute test. Oh, is that the circle of excellence?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go. The why is in the middle, and then we have the how, and then we have the what.
And then have the what. So my why is I challenge conventional thinking and think outside the box. My how is better way. So I help people find a better way. And then my what is ultimately I bring the ability to make sense. Make sense is my what out of I make sense out of challenging. I make sense out of complicated situations and problems, right? So I'm out of the box problem solver, which makes me a coach that I use hypnosis, I use NLP, I use energy medicine. I've studied shamanism. I've studied all these different out of the box things. I do the ancestral clearing for your DNA. So all of these things. So when people come to me, they're like, I've tried everything. And I'm like, I wanted to become the person that I was looking for 20 years ago, 25 years ago, because I was suicidal. I was 38 years old. Now I'm giving my age away, but but I was lost. No one could help me. I was going from therapist to therapist to therapist, and no one was helping me because I could outsmart my therapist. I would give them the answers that they wanted to hear because I wanted to impress them. I wasn't being authentic with them because I was terrified that I was going to be misunderstood. And I realized that using these techniques, it gets your higher self out of the way.
Yes.
I mean, you connect to your higher self, you get your monkey mind out of the way. And so then I was able to have conversations with my hypnotherapist and get to the root cause fast. So I always say you can do 20 years worth of work in a very short period of time and clear it out.
Yeah.
But you also, as coaches, we don't sprinkle fairy dust on anyone and magically appear. We plant the seeds. People have to do the work. And sometimes that work means getting out of relationships, changing jobs, moving, doing big things in your life. And that can be scary. But the scariest things are always worth it when you face them.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you saying that.
Wow.
I'm just thinking about the countless times I told myself over the years, striving through entrepreneurship, because you have your ups, your downs, your sideways, your blindedness. It's just okay. I'm in a rut. What is something that scares me right now? How can I take the smallest action toward that? Or how can I take the biggest action that I know that I can accomplish to get toward that? And some days that was just pressing the send button on an email because that was the extent of my effort. Some days, like this past weekend, like I sang in public for the first time.
I heard you. That was amazing.
Oh my God, I missed this.
You did?
Yes. Was this at the boot camp?
This is at the boot camp. We had the podcast pitching, so 2 minutes for coaches the first day, 1.5 minutes on the second day, 60 seconds on day 3. So day 3, I wrote my own lyrics to somebody else's song. So I used their melody. And then that was my intro.
Cool.
Wow.
So I was like, I was shaking. But the whole weekend was about courage.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's just do it. I want to do this. I love this. This is me. I don't want to die with the music inside me.
Beautiful.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful.
That's what we just kept talking about. So I love that you keep bringing up the courage and bringing that into your past stories, the lies that you tell yourself. That's why I love your book so much.
Thank you.
Believe, so good. And then you talked about authenticity, but I want to touch on that third one. You said unconditional love.
Right.
First off, do you know how rare that is? And then how do you embody that through your message and your work?
It took me a lifetime. This is only recent for me, probably 2 years, and this is how I did it. Forgiveness. okay, and letting go. Because when we are around people that trigger us, this is the first key that people need to understand. It's something unresolved in ourselves that people are mirroring for us.
Yep.
So the first thing I learned was, what is this person triggering inside of me, and what do I need to heal inside myself? And that's a really bold statement, because someone can be sitting there screaming at you, calling you all kinds of names, and you're getting triggered and it hurts and you start to cry. And it's like, that means I believe them. That means that what they say, I believe is true. Yeah. When you release all of these lies and these beliefs inside of you, then you become neutral. Because if someone said to me, this is just like a silly word that I said, you're a picklehead, I would laugh, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I would just laugh. I'm like, I'm not a picklehead. What is that? I don't even know what that is. And I saw, who was it? Selma Hayek say, if someone were cursing at you in a foreign language, and you didn't understand what they were saying, and they were ripping into you, you would sit there and laugh because you wouldn't even know what they were saying. So when someone says something to you, it takes me back to that kindergarten statement, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off of me and sticks to you, right?
Yes, beautiful.
And so don't take it on. And that's a bold statement, and it's not easy. But what I did is I wrote down all the things that were triggering me. And I went one by one, and I released it. There's something called the emotion release method. And it's really simple statement.
Can I ask you to repeat what that is? Because you were breaking up.
It's the emotional release method.
Okay.
And it's, should I let it go? Yes. Could I let it go? Yes. When? Now. And it's also known as the Sedona method. And so those 3 sentences, you focus on where it is in your body or thought. You give it a number from 0 to 10, 10 being the highest. And then you bring it down to neutral. And the idea is getting you into the present moment, and you get the emotion out, because when you make statements that are emotionally driven, it takes you out of your presence. It takes you out of your authenticity. So being present is everything. Because I always got frustrated when, Oprah and, all these people and Deepak Chopra get into the present moment. Well, if someone would just please tell me how, that would be really helpful, because, sitting there with the monkey mind and trying to look, what does that even mean? Yeah. And then I went into something called forgiveness with another prayer. It's called the Ho'oponopono. It's an ancient Hawaiian prayer. Yeah. Yep. And there's a lot of information online about it. It is magical. Magical. It created magic in my life. It changed my life in ways I cannot even begin to describe. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Ho'oponopono, and it's H-O and then apostrophe O, P-O-N-O-P-O-N-O, yes. I think.
Yep. No, that's it.
Yep. Wow. I said it enough. It's embedded. So Dr. Joe Vitale wrote a book called Zero Limits. And he saw this article in a newspaper about this Dr. Hugh Lin. And Dr. Hugh Lin, yes, exactly. That book changed my life. Huh. And I'm actually in the Blue Talks collaborative book where he's in. And yeah, so I'm in that book. And nice. It was such an honor to have done all that work and then have the privilege of being part of that collaborative book. So he saw Dr. Hugh Lin talk about the fact that there was a prison in Hawaii, and that prison was for the criminally insane. And they had so much attrition with their therapists and the officers in there. They couldn't keep people, and it was literally an insane asylum. And they were obligated to keep a therapist on staff. Otherwise, they were going to lose their federal funding. So they couldn't find anyone to hire. And they approached Dr. Hugh Lin, and he said, okay, I'll do it, but I don't see the patients in person. I just get their file. And they're like, you're nuts. And they said, forget it. 3 months later, they were desperate. They hired him. And slowly over time, as he did this, this prayer, the whole part of the prison started to literally diminish. They either went to a mental health facility or they went back into the prison population. So I used this tool, and it's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. 4 simple lines that are life-changing. And if you think about this, when you forgive, it's not saying okay for what the other person did. It's, I like to say, it's a backpack full of bowling balls that I'm putting down and walking away from because I don't want to carry this anymore.
Yeah.
So, because if you think about this, when you're walking around with resentments and anger, 80% of your thoughts are going to that. And how much do you have left to manifest your life? And like energy attracts like energy. So when you are in that state of anger and resentment, and that causes depression because it's lowering your frequency, then guess what happens? That's what you're attracting in your life. So when you go to a place of forgiveness, now I had 2 things happen to me. There was a person in life who I had spoken to in 14 years. And the only thing that I had changed was the prayer. And I got a call 3 months later, and I was doing this prayer every morning. I had a stack of people on index cards this thick. And I was releasing. They called me out of the blue and said, I noticed things have changed in my life. Changed. Said, I want you back in my life. How can we make this work? And they are now back in my life. And then I had someone else who I hadn't spoken to in 7 years do the same thing. And when I did that, it cleared the way. I also forgave myself. That's the number one. You need to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I forgave myself. And then all of a sudden, my book came pouring out of me. I've been trying to write that book for 15 years. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
And every time I wrote it, I sat down to write it. It was coming from the perspective of a victim. And I'd read it and I'd have to throw it away. So it finally came out of me. And then within 9 months of writing it, it was a bestseller. But
Amazing.
I never would have achieved that without letting it go and forgiving myself. Yeah. And so those were the 2 greatest things that I was able to give myself. And I hope that answers your question. I don't even remember what the question was.
Doesn't matter.
How unconditional love goes into your business.
Yeah. So the unconditional love was, I needed to accept myself unconditionally and the other people in my life. And, you know, if you look at the book, The 4 Agreements, you want to take those tenets and live them. And the number one is, and this is what I do every day when someone is behaving in a way that is not a way that I would behave, or maybe what I deem inappropriate, I'll say to myself, they're doing the best they can with what they have right now. Even being mean and hurting me. Because your best today is going to be different than tomorrow. If you wake up Sunday morning with a hangover, is your best that afternoon going to be the same best as it is Monday morning once you've recovered? No. So we have to honor that in ourselves, because we have good days and bad days, and we need to honor that within us and give ourselves for that.
You said hangover, and I immediately thought of game nights when friends bring over junk food. We don't drink alcohol. Every once in a while, somebody drinks a cup of beer. But like, I will eat junk food for the first time in a long time, and then my body literally goes through all of the symptoms.
Yeah, no, you can absolutely. Yes, it's the sugars.
It feels horrible. It's
all the chemicals.
Groggy.
Yeah. Yep. Totally.
Wow. So
I
love that you have all 3 of those: courage, authenticity, and unconditional love. And that's how you want people to see you. Yeah.
Right. Well, here's the thing about authenticity. And I saw this in a video, and I haven't had a chance. I tried to look it up, and I couldn't find the exact study, but bear with me on this. It's something called the Spain Institute, SPANE, did a study. They work with frequency. I don't know how many of you know Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. So in it, he has this, it's a scale, and it goes up through different states of being and frequency. There you go.
Yeah.
So, you can start with all these different levels and work your way up. So what's interesting is, and this is a side thing, animals, dogs are automatically at the state of love. Cats and dogs. So their frequency, I think that's about 400. So when they're on you and you're petting them, they're healing you. That's why you feel so good around your animals, because they're raising your frequency.
Interesting.
So what was interesting?
500.
Is it 500? Okay,
500,
love is
yeah.
500.
And I keep hearing love and above, love and above.
Yes, love and above. Exactly. So this was the crazy thing. They said authenticity was 4,000 times the size, the frequency of love. Because when I say authenticity, love can come with conditions. I'll only love you if. A lot of people don't really understand what love is. It has to be unconditional. But authenticity is when you've forgiven yourself, when you've let go of everything, when you honor the good, the bad, the ugly within yourself, when you can just stand there raw. And I think of Brene Brown in that state, the ultimate state of vulnerability. And the SEAL teams and and I also interviewed someone in the Army Rangers. They have to move around, as I think about a spider, like one person's the body and each person is the leg. So someone's the eyes, the ears, the nose, and you have to trust them and think as in one. And so when you are in that ultimate vulnerability, trusting and allowing and knowing that no one can hurt you unless you give them permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to think about it visually. And I think about I think it's a metaphor of basically skeletons in your closet.
Yes.
Like, what if there were no skeletons in your closet? Would you be afraid of somebody going into the closet?
Right.
If you didn't have all those emotions and situations that you're shoving into the corner somewhere in the deep depths of who you are, would you mind people coming in and looking around?
Well, here's the interesting part. And Beth, you understand that because you talk about story, right? So there's a whole thing about changing your story. Well, easier said than done.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So here's the thing about my book. I had done all that forgiveness work and I had done all the releasing. And so there were people that I dedicated my book to that caused me a lot of pain. And I had people say to me, how could you? I was by you while you were having your nervous breakdown, while you were suicidal. And who are you to dedicate this book to them? And they were really insulted. And I was like, here's the thing. I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have the wisdom and the knowledge that I have on dealing with that situation without them. So I look at them with deep gratitude, and that is authentic, right? If I didn't, then I wouldn't be authentic to myself and real. And that also helped me better understand that I had truly forgiven them, because there is no trigger anymore when I see them, when I hear their voice. Whereas before, years ago, I would have gone into a tailspin if I heard this one person's name. Oh my God. Well, I was giving my power away to them. Right. When you hold your power, when you're in your authenticity and you change your story at a deep level, no one can hurt you. And my mentor, this guy, Dr. Al Tatarunas, and I haven't been able to get hold of him. He was 93. And then I started working with him when he was 82. Oh, wow. And he was amazing. And he's down in Florida and he's not answering my calls. So I'm afraid of the worst, because I've been trying to reach him and I don't know his family. So, but he told me the story. His daughter fell in Boston. They call it the T station, or the train, the T. Mm-hmm. And she hit her head and she was hemorrhaging. Wow. And he called me the next day and he said, I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was worrying. And then I thought to myself, how is that worrying helping her? And he realized it wasn't. And then he said, how is this worrying helping me? And he said, I realized it wasn't. It was putting him in fight or flight and he couldn't think clearly. So he was able to clear all his fear and all his anxiety out so that he could be present with the doctors, be fully present with his daughter to help make important decisions. So they're not emotional decisions. Now, could I do that? That takes a lot of practice. And that's an extreme example, because if my daughter was in ICU hemorrhaging, I don't know that I could fully do that. I would do my best. I'm still human. But in your everyday, it was just a point that he was able to do it, and then he was able to be fully present.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Can I go backwards a little bit here, because I have all this curiosity about unconditional love. And when you first said that, I thought inside, like, wow, that's really bold to be able to say that, because how do you measure that? I use that word for lack of a better term, like measure that internally. Like, how do you know that? I guess I'm curious about that. How do you know that?
I can say to someone, I love you, but there's a part of me that needs them to behave a certain way, right? And that's conditional, because in order for me to be happy, you have to meet my needs. And that's the basis of a lot of people's relationships.
Yeah.
When you remove that and just let them be them, and stop saying, well, you're not meeting my needs, and you're not doing this and you're not doing that, and you just let them be, that's when it's unconditional. And it's not easy, especially when a marriage where you've been married a long time and you don't see things on the same level. That doesn't mean that you stay married to someone and give them the okay to keep behaving in a certain way that's not healthy for you. But it's just saying, it's not my job to change them. This is who they are. And I need to love them because that's who they are. And yet I can say goodbye. I can let them go and still love them. And I can honor them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think what it does, I think what you're saying is that you see inside yourself there isn't as much attachment to that.
Yes,
like you're really letting people be people, letting life be life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is a bit of a personal story, but it's it was kind of allowed me to detach myself. So I started dating someone last spring, but very briefly. We had a couple dates, and he was everything on my list. Like, I was like, oh my God, this must be the one, right? And I said a prayer, and I asked to be shown what I wasn't seeing, because love can be blinding.
Brave,
right? You don't
very
see
brave.
Everything. So, boom. I got my answer.
Yeah.
And I realized that I suddenly got accused of cheating on him when I wasn't, because I showed a photo of myself with two other guys who are like brothers to me. Aww. And he got jealous and, accused me of cheating on him because I looked radiant. Well, I was on vacation. I was having a ball. Of course I looked radiant. But I went, okay, thank you for showing me. Goodbye.
Yeah.
It hurt, and I had to release that. But I honored him, and I thanked him for showing me what wasn't seen. So I wasn't 6 months or a year into a relationship and suddenly seeing that this person wasn't the right person, because I was too much involved in that warm, fuzzy, beautiful, la-la feeling that you have in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to be grounded, and it allowed me to see him and be able to let go. Does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, okay. It makes total sense.
Yeah. I want to recap just for a moment, because there was something that was a sticking point for me too. It's the idea that unconditional love means letting go. I was like, oh, because we want to be around people, and just as you said, the warm fuzzy feelings. And there was this idea that most people, when they come into relationships, they're like chairs, and each person has 2 legs, so together you have 4 and you can stand up. But that doesn't make for a good relationship.
So the
people need to come in with 4 legs,
right?
So that if one of those legs goes, you now have a support system until you get your leg back.
So that statement from Jerry Maguire, you completely.
Is that where that came from?
Sorry.
That's a big.
No, No, that's called very
enmeshment.
enmeshment. Yes, thank you for the word. I was searching for that. Very dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah.
So I
Oh, if you come in
know.
with 2 legs, you mean?
Yes, the
Yeah,
investment, it's
no.
like you completely, it's like, I need you to complete me. And now I'm like, no. I need to be whole in my relationship, and I need to have done my work, and I need someone as a partner who has also done their work and they're whole, because I'm very independent. I love my life. I'm very busy. I don't want a needy person. I don't want someone who's gonna, say, I need you to be this for me and I need you to be that, because that's controlling. And that's eventually why relationships will come undone, is because we have this misconception of what love really is. And it's about honoring. And I think about, if I had this wisdom when I was still married, could the outcome have been different? I don't know. Because I was in that state of, I needed him to be a certain way and he needed me to be a certain way. And we had grown apart to such a degree that his interests didn't interest me anymore, and my interest didn't, and they scared him.
I'm sure.
Oh my God, what's she doing now? Because I was going to mystery schools and traveling around the world and working with shaman, and he's like, what? I remember coming home from one of my trainings where I was learning mediumship, and I'm like, guess who I talked to today? And he's like, who? And I said, your grandmother. And he's like, oh my God.
So Lisa, I want to make sure that with the 30 seconds or so that we have left, where do we find you, and what is your favorite way to communicate with people?
I love in-person talking. So you can reach me through my website, Lisa Schermerhorn Coaching. And I love having conversations. I do free, conversation, just, message me. I love to talk to people. And if I can help you in 5 minutes, that's fine. Doing the why discovery and figuring out your why, your how, and your what. It's a 10-minute discovery. It's amazing, and it can be life-changing. So, is that 30 seconds up?
I'm definitely going to hit you up with that. And I just want to make sure that you do have just a little bit of time. Was there something that we didn't talk about that you just wanted to touch on before we say goodbye?
I just want to go into about what's going on in the world right now, because there's so much fear and so much. And my body was vibrating all weekend. I think I cried all day Sunday. And I had to do some things to really, really stop it. And I had to shut the TV off. I had to shut everything off, go outside, get grounded. And if you need help, use it, because I used all those techniques that I was just talking about the forgiveness and letting go, because we need you to be healthy. We need you to be in a state of gratitude and a state of love, because we all manifest as the collective. So the more that we can do this kind of work and come together and create peace and come in unity instead of this divisiveness, the faster we can get through this.
Thank you, Lisa. It's always a delight. And I'm always loving the purple hair too. So we'll have to connect behind the scenes, because I definitely want to know. I think I'm more of the challenging person too, and it feels like Beth is as well. So
yes.
Well, those are the entrepreneurs. The challenge and the better way, because they're always looking for a better way, or they're challenging the status quo. They're looking for something outside the box that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, this was wonderful, and I appreciate you so much, and we can't wait to have you back in the future.
Well, awesome. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And I see Katharina in the back. If you can hear us and see us, give us a thumbs up and we'll bring you up. Yay! Hi, Katharina. Am I saying your name correctly? I want to make sure.
Yes, Katharina with a TH. Okay. Yes.
Double checking. So welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
And I remember you from the boot camp this weekend.
Yes.
Like you did one of the podcast pitches,
if
I remember correctly. I want to touch there first, because I know we've been talking about courage, not just on the weekend in the boot camp, but also this week through the interviews. It just keeps coming up.
Fantastic.
So can you tell us a little bit about leaning into that courage and doing that podcast pitch live?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know what I'm ready for. right? I feel like I'm in this evolution of my career and what I'm offering in this world. And I know that that next step for me is speaking more. And I just finished writing a book, and I'm so excited to launch it out into the world. So it's just a big yes, right? So that means getting out of my comfort zone. And my book is about that. It's about navigating all of our life situations. And first of all, honoring all of the past experiences and our challenges to be able to harness the energy of that, consciously choose what we want to unbecome in the next version of ourselves, and then use that as the alchemy for our next becoming. But in our next becoming, as we start to embody, and I give tools to start to embody. So that will be a fresh perspective, but it'll be many, many perspectives. If we can try on all these different ways of looking at our situations, looking at our life, and if I really believe that life is happening for me and not to me, well, then I know that I'm stepping into exactly what I need for myself. So that was kind of like this weekend, in the sense, or the last weekend. And it was like, okay, I don't have a pitch. Like, I know that I have lots of things to talk about. And I know that I have been on podcasts before, and I have my areas of expertise. And they're really, like, I call myself the one-stop body shop. Except over the course of all of the ways of helping people with being healthy and joyful and vital in their bodies, is recognizing that it's not just how you eat and how you move. It's also how you think and how you feel and how you perceive and what you listen to and how you talk and all of the things and how you perceive. Yeah. And so for me, it's stepping into this yes, right? It's like, okay, I don't know.
So what made you say yes to coming to the boot camp? Have you been to a boot camp before?
I did go to a boot camp a couple of years ago. And so I and I love it. There's so much information to gather. It's, it's a full couple of days. I couldn't just attend everything. And I know last year I popped on, or the last one, I don't know if they're every year, but the last one, I popped on here and there. I did talk to one of the podcast pitchers, or the people who do. So I did get onto his podcast, which is actually going to be happening in January. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that my time with Brad.
Yeah. Right.
For like a year.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Laura.
Well, I've been moving 4 times in 5 months. So
wow.
It's like, I don't know where I'm going to be. I can't promise.
Okay. Yes. Lots of upheaval and change. Right. And that's the other thing, is like, I start to see change, as a platform through which it's like a chrysalis. Like, just as we start to embody the new behaviors and mindset and perspective of where we're wanting to step into and experience life from, I kind of see it as like, I'm an avatar and I am Katharina, and no one ever will get to be Katharina. So I'm like, well, let's just bring it on. Right. And I have all my quirks and idiosyncrasies, and, I'm a bit of a dork, and it's like, okay, right. So I might as well like be the best dork I can be. And so how do I harness that and utilize that the best that I can? And so that's kind of just the approach of, when I go through these chrysalis moments, I call them. So they can be the deaths, the divorces, the health crisis, the career crisis, the financial crisis, the relationship crisis. They can be all of the big things, right?
But the flooding basement.
A flooding basement, right? To throw a wrench into things. And it also can be an inner stirring. It could be just like, it might show up as depression, anxiety, malaise, right? It could just be like, is there something more, right? And so then if we can allow ourselves to fall apart and get a little messy and gooey, which the caterpillar needs to do in order to become the butterfly. So as I'm practicing these, so what I use as tools is reperspective, visceral body embodiment experiences. So rather than just an affirmation, it'd be like, I take people through a guided visualization, physical embodiment experience to feel what it feels like. So we can have something tangible. It's like, well, I know what it feels like to tap into that kind of vibration. I remember when I felt that way, and I can bring that into like, how do my actions and my thoughts align with what if I was already there, right? And so then we start to embody more of it. And just like life is going to continue to see where we're at, right? It's going to challenge our old perspectives and our old conditioning. And that's like the butterfly trying to get out of the cocoon, because it needs the cocoon to build the strength in its wings in order to emerge. If you try to cut it out, it's going to die. just like us in life, we're constantly building this strength in our wings. But when we're ready to emerge, and when we start to find like, hey, these things that used to trigger me don't trigger me anymore, right? We start to live into a new experience. We start to, spread our wings into that space. And then ultimately, the idea of being able to be in those chrysalis moments, because we're going to have them. It's not like there's a place to arrive, right? We're going to be going through chrysalis moments through our entire life. But now I bring the version of myself that I want to be in the moment. And that's the thing, right? Like I had this crazy travel trip in March where everything, right? I ended up with laryngitis right before we were leaving. We're going with another couple. We're traveling overnight. We get to the location, but 2 hours prior to landing, I got a bladder infection. Then we landed, and then our luggage went missing. And it was all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay. All right, if this is happening for me, right? And so it's like, who do I want to embody right now? Because that's the thing. So if I can embody those things in the moment, it will completely transform my experience. And it becomes a magical experience. And this is kind of what I did, and why I wrote the book is what I did with my infertility journey, is what I did with my cancer scare journey. It's what I did when I had to uplift or lift my whole life and leave my career and my family to come to a different province, to become a full-time stepmom, start my career over right in the midst of a pandemic, and my father died. It was just a whole bunch of things. But I reflect on all of those individual things, and I only feel awe, right? If we look at life through the lens of curiosity and wonderment, which is that of a child, right? And some of us have, maybe some child stuff that we might need to heal. And for me, my inner child was fiercely independent, completely interested in everything. And so I call in that as much as I can to create that lens from which, like, how can I be more curious? And as a body person and as a health person, I help, and I work with men and women, but all of my online support is for women, because as a woman and working with women, I know how difficult it can be to be in our bodies because of the conditioning, right? And it's like, are we really meant to hate our bodies our entire life? Right? I don't think so. So how do we get curious? And instead of just like jumping on the diet bandwagon and this fad of how you exercise and whatnot, it's like, how do I figure out what works for my body? Right. And when I'm coaching one of my clients, I do comprehensive health coaching. We're looking at root cause. We're looking at all kinds of things. But it's like, I need to look at what's going to be your piece, your medicine, right? Because my medicine might be your poison.
Right.
Trying this one size fits all approach. And there's all of the other stuff in the background. There's all of the conditioning and all of the belief systems and perceptions that we have about ourselves and how we move in this world. And so when we can think about movement more as this, like at the end of all of my sessions with my clients, I do this reperspective meditation. And so it helps them to reconnect that they're not taking time out of life to exercise. They're actually regenerating the batteries that they need in order to live the life that they want. And so when they can stop to feel the reverence and the appreciation for that, then they're going to, like, they always get up afterwards. And they're not trying to rush out the door to get to work, right? It's just like they're lingering, they're savoring, they're in this embodiment of the actual experience that they're wanting.
I need that last 2%
Oh my God.
recharge.
I love that you said that. That's so amazing. I mean, how many clients have I had who, I just need more discipline. Every time I hear that word, I kind of go,
right?
Inside. I'm like, discipline. I mean, the thing is, discipline is good, but there's like, where's the celebration in it, right? Where's like, I love your word of recharge. Like, where's that? I mean, that's really it.
Well, how I word that too. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say how I word that. It's in my book actually, but it's also part of my teaching, is self-discipline versus self-devotion. And so if we think about the masculine and feminine within, whether you're male or female is irrelevant, is that these more feminine properties of being more in the nurturance, being more in the creativity, being more in the intuitiveness, in that flow, in that like nature just kind of like it's all over, right? But we allow ourselves to be in that flow. And the masculine is about the doing and the getting it done and the right. So that's the discipline.
Yeah.
And discipline without self-devotion is just rigidity. It just sets us up for failure because we feel like, see, I can't do it. I just proved it to myself. I screwed up again. I fell off the bandwagon. I didn't do the thing. But out of self-devotion, when I connect to, well, I want to do this out of devotion to the version of Katharina that wants to experience more vitality and energy. She wants to feel alive and feeling strong in her body, right? And it's like out of devotion to her, I am going to partake, but I'm not going to beat myself up in it. I'm going to go into it from that feminine perspective of curiosity and trying things on. And, like I used to work out, 5-6 days a week for at least an hour. And about 16, 17 years ago, before HIIT was a thing, I started to condense my workouts to 20 minutes. And so that's like, I have an online Body Freedom membership to support women in all the ways of being in their body. So it's like 3 times a week for 20 minutes. And it's hard because they're like, what do you mean only 3 times a week for 20 minutes? That's not enough. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like my body completely transformed, but it also my mindset about everything too. Like I used to have an eating disorder and I was told once you have an eating disorder, you always have an eating disorder. And that's not true. Right. I have a very healthy relationship with food. I eat what I want. I don't want, crappy things, but it doesn't mean like everyone's idea, right? Like I eat lots of fat in my diet. I eat lots of, I eat carbohydrates. I eat all the things, right? But I eat real food and that's what my body craves. Right. It doesn't mean I can't have dessert or there's no can and can. There's just this like living into what is it that my body wants right now. And in the fall, it's like, yeah, my body's like, give me some stew and some like heavier foods, right? Like it's wanting that. I don't feel like eating, salads and, so it's tapping into that.
I love it. I mean, I think there's so many people out there now. I mean, you have to look for it who are really customizing, to the person. And so I love that you're bringing that up because it's so important. I think there's just still so many people in the world who don't understand that we are each unique, that we all have our own formula per se of like what we need, So like, for example, I mean, you would probably never do what I do. I'm a CrossFitter. I love it, and but I know what my limits are and I've learned over the years to hold back. But again, it's that leaning into what do I need, like
absolutely what
works for me. Yeah.
And exploring, like sometimes you need to dive in. Right. Yeah.
I was just thinking about those words. You must be in my head. Like, I love the muscle idea of CrossFit. And I'm the same as you, Katharina, with the whole 20 minutes, 3 times a week, because I know that I'm not trying to force my body into something with exercise. I'm trying to communicate it with efficient exercise, right? Because then you're working with the hormones instead of just trying to push into what you think is going to work.
Right.
And but I've had that craving of wanting, like I just moved again, but thankfully it's over now.
Okay, good.
And I have this like huge craving to just explore, but on my bike.
Oh,
like there's woods and I explored the woods, but now I want to bike around the new town that I'm in. Even though winter's coming and I hate being in the cold, it's just so overpowering of you should go explore. Well, you can't. You're going live all week this week. You can.
Wow.
But yeah, exactly. So heeding that call and like, okay, well, this is something that I'm going to explore a little bit more of. Yeah. And also the thing for movement, that the reason why that the shorter also worked for me is like, I used to find that I was just putting in the time, right? It's like, it's not about the clock. It's not about, and then what tends to happen is it's like, okay, well, what's for lunch? And where do I want to go on holidays? And so when I'm in, like I do 24 sets in 20 minutes, like I'm just go. So I am 100% in my body. I don't have time to think about, what's for lunch. Right. And then I'm breathing into the muscle I'm working. I'm isolating the muscle. I'm getting tenfold results because I'm actually present in the experience and harnessing the energy of the exercise where it needs to go. And so I feel and I see it. And when other people do it, and it's like their workout is harder because they're more focused on how they're moving them. They're isolating and moving. it's much more focused, and I can see when they're getting it, and it's like a completely different experience for them. And it's like, because otherwise sometimes people are doing exercises, they have no idea what muscles are even working.
Right. So,
You know?
yeah. So I'm super curious about this. I love, like, you just shifted some things for me. Like, you gave me a new language with the devotion piece versus the I love that. And so can you tell a story of a client, who really just struggled with keeping that schedule, or wanting something, but not being able to be devoted to it or to their self? Like, what shifted that for them to get to that devotion?
Well, and really, again, it's spending that time in those retrospective experiences, right? Like, I start off all of our sessions, like, bringing in, okay, I am more than just this physical body. I'm bringing in this awareness, right? I'm bringing in the awareness that doesn't have judgment about who I am and what's going on, and being with them, because especially if we're seeing each other weekly, is being able to help them when they butt up against themselves, right? Which is the part that's like, oh, I'm really struggling with not, going out exercising twice today,
Yeah.
and just giving them the encouragement to try it. It's like, you can always go back to your old habits. You can always go back to your old ways, but how will you know that there's another way unless you actually try it, right? And so to start to witness that, and what also ends up happening is there's more joy, there's more feminine that actually comes through, because playfulness,
Yes.
right? Pleasure and play. How do we invite more of that into our experience? And then the body starts to come alive differently, right? And so that's kind of like the success story. I'm thinking about a client in particular who, really into that rigidity, and being able to channel the rigidity into something else. Like, I always say balance breeds mediocrity. And oftentimes we're in this, like, you need to find balance. It's like, yes, balance in the perspective of that we're not, too indulged into a bad habit or something that isn't serving our mental, emotional, spiritual, physical well-being. However, if I have an illness, I am going to dive into my health pillar, right? I call it the Body Temple Blueprint. And that's what one of the other programs that I offer to help people to figure out their unique blueprint. And that foundation is not only our willingness, but that foundation is also, if we have cracks in that foundation, how strong is our body temple going to be? So when we explore the cracks, and those cracks are often belief systems that we have about ourselves, right? I'm not deserving, this isn't for me because, it never has worked for me, or whatever that might be. So when I help them to dissolve and understand those and heal those cracks in their foundation, those belief systems, then they can trust that their body will speak to them, and they learn, and learning how to hear the language of the body, right? How do we build a relationship with our bodies? And so as this client started to build a relationship with her body, because she didn't live in her body. It's like, it was too painful to be in her body because of all the experiences that she had. So as she started to embody, it was like other things started to show up. It wasn't just, I lost 10 pounds and, a few inches around my waist and I feel stronger. It was like, oh my God, I feel like I have a whole new lease on life. I feel more alive than ever before. And it's not about just getting the time in the gym. And, it's like, it's just full expression of enjoyment, pleasure, right? Yeah.
I want to expand on that just for a moment, because this is the visual of what's happening right now, but it's such a great parallel to what you were just saying. You mentioned cracks in the foundation and repairing them. So I'll just give you the story of my life right now, which is a great parody to this. So there were holes in my foundation, but nobody knew that. What was showing up was there was just a little bit of a curl in the flooring. So think about your life where those little moments where it's just a little bit of attention and you're not paying attention to it. So the flooring with a little bit of a curl on the edge. I know with my background with architecture that if there's water damage like that, even a minor one, it's 10 times worse behind the scenes. So if you're feeling those little bits of tension, it's 10 times worse behind the scenes. So when you rip up the flooring and it's all moldy, and you rip up the underlayment and it's full of bugs and moldy, And then you see that the water comes in when it rains. What is that rain in your life? It doesn't even have to be a hurricane. What are those moments of rain in your life where those cracks are letting it in every single time? So then if you're not repairing those cracks, it could flood your basement.
Very good analogy.
Which is what happened. So then I fixed the holes. I waited until we had a hurricane. It did not flood. There was no moisture issues. We're just fixing up the rest of it now. But now I'm saving myself years and years of heartache and constant effort because I put in the effort now to do things properly to fix it.
Exactly.
So that it doesn't keep happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect analogy.
I was like, this just happens right in.
Yeah.
And because I decided not to get dirty before going live today, I'll get dirty after going live.
Yeah. And then you can, if you think about the analogy of the house itself too, like we have the electrical system, which is like our energy system, right? It's got a plumbing system, like we have a plumbing system. So we can also look at all of the ways that a home operates and then thinking about honestly, like what kind of home do I have right now? I might have some priorities or priorities that I'm living out and the values that I have, but are they actually in line? Like my values are health and family and, eating great food. Like some people are foodies. I'm a foodie, right? Yeah. And it's like, but they're working, 10 hours a day and, sitting in front of the TV and don't have time to do all the things that they value as far as, right. And so then when we don't have that, that match, then, that's going to show up in our pillars, which are mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. And so those cracks in the foundation, they're going to affect some of those aspects. We've got the, all the different systems or plumbing system and all that. So if we don't have the awareness from the holistic approach, like the whole body wellness, not just how I'm moving and how I'm eating, then we're going to be able to really create that structure. So for some people, it's about getting honest. It's like, is your home a shack? Is it an outhouse? Like really, for some people, it's like, or if you're like so toxic and, you're just like, how are you going to start to clean out the systems, the pipes, right? We got to like get things moving. And is there lots of light coming in? Do you feel lightness in your body? Do you feel the presence of possibility in your life? And so how do we start to re-perspective our bodies as a temple? We talk about it all the time. Well, temple, right?
So Katharina, if you could take a moment to just whittle some things down, what would one core piece be that you would need people to take away from that idea of working with your body and ground up health?
Your body is a wonderland. Explore it. Yeah. And honor the experience, the reverence of you being you. And that nobody, like really grasp the concept and the feeling that nobody ever has, ever will get to be you.
Aww. So I want to dive into just the ways that you like to share your message. Now, I know that you had done the podcast pitching. And did I hear that you mentioned a book in there?
Yeah, I just got my copy.
Do you have it with you?
I do. It's hard to see with the light, but
Butterfly.
The Butterfly Project, The Alchemy of Unbecoming.
Ooh, beautiful. Love that.
What made you decide to write a book or be on podcasts? Like why those things and why not something else?
Yeah. I just feel like that's my next stage. Like when you think about people that are really good at what they do, they've often had to come through it themselves.
Yes.
Right. And so my body stuff was something like I've been a body coach for almost 3 decades.
Wow.
And so I feel like, because now I'm in the embodiment without it, like I'm in the emergence of that in my own body, that I don't fall into a lot of the constructs of what a coach is in the fitness and health industry, because I'm not going to give you a strict thing. I'm going to work with you to get to know your body and move and eat and live in it in those ways. And so I feel like now there's room. So my body's like, got this. Now you can dive into some of those other realms and dive in and explore. So for me, the inner world and exploring all those perspectives and seeing how that affects the physical body, it's like, oh, it's fascinating to me. So I live there, right? So I have many books in me, But this was the first one that emerged, which is really because I have a program called the Chrysalis Transformation Pod.
Yes.
It really started out as 9 weeks to sexy and helping women to uncover those cracks. And every week we work with those cracks, right? To discover, like, you know, how do we feel sexy in our bodies? And it's not about sexuality as much as it is like, how do we step more into our feminine? How do we love our bodies right here, right now in the transformative process? And so then realizing, well, there's this potent transformative energy that's available in our chrysalis moments, right? In the gooiness, right? In the honoring of all those experiences, like I did with my fertility and eye cancer and all the things that were all happening at the same time. It was like, okay, I like how I went through the eye scare. Like I basically found out I had a mole inside of my eyeball. I didn't even know you can have a mole inside of your eyeball.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And it was below my optic nerve. And it's like, you can't like cut it off your skin and go get it tested. Right.
No.
So
Yeah.
if it grew anymore and something became of it, like I would lose my vision, and losing your vision is kind of a big deal. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I was like, so I ended up treating it like it was a cancer, because they can then they do this brachytherapy. It's more like a little specific radiation that they do on the actual mole. And I went into it because at first I was like, my whole body was like, I can't have cancer. I'm a health coach and I'm all these things, right? And I had this total attitude, this total like, rah, right?
I get it.
Yeah. And then and I was like, okay, well, you can do that if you want, or you can choose to bring another version of yourself in and have an experience that I can evolve in. And so I brought in humor. I had an eye patch that had bedazzled peace sign on it. And I'm like, I'm looking forward to my new Apple eye patch. And I brought I created a flow meditation CD like 2006 or something like that, 7. And it's all about being in the space of honoring and appreciating every part of our body. So I'm listening to my meditation. I'm like bringing my body into a place of more harmony and calm. And I had my stone with me. And then I went into the operating room and I'm like, okay, he introduces me to all the peeps, right? And I'm like, I have a request. And they're like, sure. I said, I want you to all imagine that you're implanting love superpowers into my eye. And that this is, so I went into it excited because I was kind of like, okay, like superpowers, right? 10, 9, 8, I'm out. I come out of it. My husband's with me. There were 6 other people having the same thing done. And as he comes around to my bed, he holds a stone in his hand. And he's like, is this yours? Of course, like who else is it going to be? The one that asked for superpowers in her eyeball. And I had this stone with me. And he's like, you're not supposed to take that in the operating room. And so he gives it back to me. And our first visit to check everything out, I give him the stone. It was an euconite. And I put the stone in a bag with the properties of the stone. And the thank you of like, thank you for, yes, you are amazing at what you do, but thank you for allowing me to have my own experience. So that like, that's part of the healing too, right? I got to bring in me. I got to bring in that magic, right? So how do we bring the magic in from either the mundane or from the mess, right? And so really that's what it's about, is like, how do we engage from that space? And so I look back on that whole experience. I feel like, oh my God, that was so cool. And even my infertility journey, and I went through IVF, something I never thought in a million years that I would do. And it was like the way that we decided to go through it, we chose to do it our way. So it was a way that I felt like I was part of the process.
That's awesome. Yes. God,
I want to touch just a little bit on the fears that may have come up when you first started thinking about podcasting or writing a book or being on a stage, because it's not necessarily always at the beginning, I'm completely ready and I've got my message and it's all perfect and lovely and it's going to just do everything. What were some of those fears just stepping into these spaces?
I think the biggest thing is, for me, it typically was around and has been around like, oh, maybe I don't know enough, or I'm going to, blank out, or I'm going to ramble on and not be concise and not deliver what they, what's really going to move the needle for them, something that they can take away. And I think those are the biggest fears that I've had when I just try to get out of my, and also if I try to script, like forget it. It's just,
Oh,
I'm not as
heart. You're
yeah,
too
like
much
I'm
in
in
your
my
head.
heart. Yeah, too much in my head, right?
Yeah.
And I live in the inner world, right? Like have a lot, even though I'm very much a physical, help people with their physical body, but in the inner world. So just like, how do I stay kind of here and present with the conversation and what what the purpose is. And so just getting out of my own way really is the biggest thing. And so those fears are, what are people going to think of me? What if I screw up and I screwed my, ruined my opportunity or whatever that might be.
Was there something that helped you move past that?
Yeah, because I know that I have a bigger purpose, right? I know that like I feel I'm way more comfortable speaking and sharing. So it's like I'm obviously meant to go here. So for me, it's just remembering that. And when I was with my boyfriend, I was 18 years old. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with his family, and my face used to turn red very easily, randomly, out of the blue, and it used to drive me crazy. And I'm like, why is my face turning red talking to people I know, right? And so I'm like, this is enough. So I said, every wedding I go to, I'm going to get up and say something in front of everybody. I'm going to go to this, to the microphone. I'm going to say something. And I was young. There was lots of weddings that were going to be happening, and I had a large extended family. And anyway, that was my first step into like, forget it. I'm just going to do something that's going to force it out of me. So wow. I have a little bit of that in me too.
I love that you chose weddings to do that. The one special day for people in their lives. You're like, I could make it or completely blow it because I'm busy facing my fear.
Yeah, it's just like I cook meals whenever we have guests over. I always cook something brand new that I've never cooked before.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah,
that can take guts.
Yeah, well, and it's also kind of like I'll tell them, and I'm like, so if it's not good, it's kind of not my fault because I haven't done it before.
Oh,
I should have done that
motivation here.
So we have about a few minutes left. I want to make sure that we covered everything that you wanted to speak about today. So was there something important that was on your heart that you just know you needed to share today?
I really feel that, again, it comes back to this curiosity and wonderment. Like that's really the fountain of youth. There's all the other things, right? But my best friend, she's 16 years older than me, and she was 46 when I met her, and she's now 68. And she shows me how to stay young, and she's got more premature aging skin than most people. Like her skin is, but she's gorgeous. Like she not only was a model and, even into her 50s and 60s, her vibrancy, her joy, her curiosity, she's like a child, right? Yeah. And so her beauty is just like, I have goosebumps right now. And so just that stepping into, that fullness that we're here to experience. I just want everyone to feel that, right? I want us all to be able to really feel that in our life, like to not exit this life, not having ever really stopped, to really have that deep, deep, deep appreciation for where we are right now, not when, right now. And that we're always in this evolution, right? My business is personal evolution because we are in this, perpetual. It's not about arriving anywhere.
Okay, now my mind is thinking personal evolution, personal revolution. Oh, I don't know why that popped into my head, but immediately went there. And then now I'm thinking about this whole mindset shift that goes with not just your work, but so many people's work. It's not just here's something, go do it. It's that utter personalization, which revolutionizes the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you act, and what you believe. And we just talked about in every belief there's a lie, and then that keeps coming up for you too. It's like, what are those things that you're lying to yourself about, and how can you switch that from the inside out?
We're often telling ourselves a story about, and I'll do that too. I'm like, okay, is that true? Like, Is that
I like
really
that you
true?
question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like usually no. It's usually like there's no way for me to prove that. I'm like, it's a possibility, but is that the possibility that I want to put all my attention on? No. What's the possibility that I'm, really wanting to engage with? And then starting to feel the lightness, the freedom, and then from that freedom, being able to keep that energy alive. Like that, it's really a vibrational energy. Like we either have a vibrational match or we don't with other people, right? It doesn't mean that you're bad. Like if I don't have a vibrational match with somebody, it's not because I'm better than them. They're just living in a different experience and that has a vibration of its own, and they're going to attract people in that vibration, right? If I don't like my life and how it's showing up, I might want to look at where I'm at. Like, what are my thoughts really creating in my life? Yeah. And what vibrational match is that? So I find that easier to dissolve all of the, nobody's really misbehaving, right? We're all just acting into the traumas and the experiences and the ways that we've done things. We're all trying to get our needs met, and we've learned some of those things. So it's just being in a little bit more grace, extending the grace to ourselves that we give to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. So where do we find you, and what is your favorite way to communicate with people?
Well, I can be found on Facebook, Katharina Kunz. I can be found on Instagram. I am Katharina Kunz. I am also on LinkedIn, which I'll be spending a little bit more time on now that I wrote this book. So if you reach, and also my email, or not my email, my website is personalevolution.ca. On there, I have a free ebook that you can sign up for. You can have a discovery call with me. I can sit with you. It's complimentary to just really give you an overview of sort of what maybe you're wanting to transform in your life and ways that we could work together. I also have online programs. I have an online membership. So all different like prices and sizes and things that work for people in different ways. Those would be probably the best way to reach out. And you can also private message me on either of those socials. And then my email is Katharina at personalevolution.ca.
Okay, I have two final questions. The first one is, I heard the word province early on. You're in Canada, aren't you? But where are you in Canada?
I am in Kelowna, British Columbia. Wine country. Yeah.
Yay, Canada. On West Coast, but that's fine.
I live in wine country.
Oh, yeah.
In California.
Fantastic. Yeah. Beautiful. So you know how fun that is.
Yes.
And then I really wanted to end with just some extra fun. I want to know what would be crazy cool. We're not thinking logical. We're not thinking, okay, I could do this in a certain timeline. If you snapped your fingers and anything could happen, crazy cool. What would you love to have happen in the next year?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to speak internationally. To engage with other people in their programs, like maybe I'm speaking in their workshops or their retreats, collaborating, really being part of a foundation, a platform of other thought leaders, having my own retreat. I do retreats, but I'd like to have like a bigger one. Maybe I have Peru is a place that I've been thinking. So,
wow. Okay, I'm loving all of that, and I'm hoping some of our listeners are listening too. Because what I really want from this is not just you to share your story, but for us to get to know you, to see how we can work with you or collaborate with you or share your message or share your type of discussions that you love to have as well.
For sure.
Because this is about collaboration and networking. We don't want it to be like, this is the Katharina show. We want to be a part of the world too, and we want to be a part of your world.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and the other piece to that too, I do rituals. It's one of my it's under my umbrella of my deep ecology of the deep ecology of the feminine. And so bringing more ritual into our lives so that we can connect to our inner ecology, to our own inner nature, and coming back, to our witchy ways, so to speak. And so those are fun things. If anybody really wants to add some ritual to an element of your offerings or whatever that is, oh my gosh, so that's a part of my book. There's 4 rituals in the book, and then I have a ritual kit that goes with it for those who want to really get a little more. Yeah. So
Okay,
yeah, I love the collaborating on, these ways.
Nice.
Mhm.
So I lied. I have
Awesome.
one more question.
Mhm.
You also mentioned that you were dorky. Okay, like what kind of dorkiness are we talking about?
So my husband, he's funny, right? And he just has this commentary in his head, and he just picks a thread and he kind of like goes, and it just takes him everywhere, right? And so I described it to him because he and Sage, our daughter, they pointed out that I have this dorky sense of humor. I got all defensive. I'm like, I do not, right? And then I, wait 10 minutes, right? And something dorky came out of my mouth. And I told him, I said, this is what it's like for me. It's like, a thought comes to my, it's the only one that comes across the screen, right? So I'm like, blah, 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 and it's usually something dorky. It's like, that's just how I was wired. It was like, my options are very slim. And so I like to talk, I like to engage. And so whatever came across my screen is what came out.
Yep,
And
that sounds familiar.
yeah. And so, and sometimes I say it knowing that, oh my God, I'm so ridiculous. And I'm just laughing at myself that this is the thing that wants to come out of my mouth.
Like, that reminds me of us driving down the highway one day. And I remember saying to my husband, I wonder how many homeless people find random hippie buses that are unlocked and then sleep in them in the middle of the woods.
Oh.
And he was like, what? So then I had to bring him through the 20 thoughts that led me there from an hour ago.
That's hilarious.
I just have to say, Laura, I didn't need the 20 thoughts. I'm totally tracking with you. I get it.
Thank you. Well, Catherine, it has been absolutely delightful and a little bit dorky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Getting to know you today just a little bit more. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I loved having this discussion with you both, and so fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So great to meet you.
You're amazing. Likewise. Thanks
We'll
so
see
much.
you again soon then, Catherine.
Okay, sounds great. Okay,
Bye.
bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. Okay. Hi,
Wow.
Dr. Heather in the background.
Another awesome person. It's the awesome people just keep coming. It's incredible. Incredible.
So Dr. Heather, if you can hear us and see us and you're ready, give us a thumbs up. Great. It'll be that one time that I don't ask where like somebody's husband is middle of COVID with no pants walking by or something. That's when I bring them up to screen. Oh my God. We've been having lots of fun all week, Dr. Heather. Do you like to be called Dr. Heather or do you prefer Heather?
It doesn't matter.
Well,
I think
matter?
doctor's good. Just because it's like Dr. Wilde or Dr. Heather, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
I don't know if I go with the last name. That's just not my thing.
Yeah.
No, I think that's good just with Dr. Heather. I used to have a horrifying last name. And so it was always Dr. Heather.
Okay, now I would need to know, like, do you mind sharing what your
No, not at all. So my last name that like I was born with means widowmaker in Ukrainian. And so I come from like a line of Cossacks. And so you can see, like, if you put a sword in my male family member's hands, you'd be like, oh, shit. Right. So, but it's not really the energy that I want to go with as a healer.
Okay. If it makes you feel any better, I was told that I'm trying to get this right, my cousin's husband, it's his mom that is the Black Widow. I was like, oh, that's one of the family members you just pretend, even though that's
what does that mean?
Marriage. You just pretend they don't exist.
Right.
I don't know what that means. What does that
mean?
You've
never heard of the Black Widow? There's a few of them throughout the world, but basically the term Black Widow is this woman who marries men and then they somehow die.
Yes, got it.
And then they inherit all the money, and then they marry another one and they somehow die. Wow. And of course, there's no proof, so they just keep doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
there's
I get where you're coming from, Dr. Heather. There's that energy that you don't want to have that kind of story behind you.
No.
Okay. So then let's get a little bit more playful.
All right.
And here's a question I've been asking all week, and I love it. It's so much fun. If you could have other people describe you in 3 words that you want them to describe you as, what might those 3 words be?
I think innovative,
Ooh,
adventurous, and not it's on the tip of my tongue. It's not necessarily successful, but it's like getting results. I can't think of the word. So it's like
prolific.
No, it's more like, because I work in healing and medicine, right? Like I want to be effective. That was it.
Ooh, there we go. Okay. And I love that you understood the way that you want other people to see you this way. Sometimes we get caught up in, what kind of words do I want to describe myself? No. How do we want other people to see us and talk about us? Because there's some underlying values there and motivations there that are unspoken, which is why I love this question so much.
It's a good question.
You said innovative, adventurous, and effective. So how does being innovative, adventurous, and effective help you as a healer? So then you have to tell us what you do at the same time.
Okay. So I am I'm kind of a witch doctor.
Oh, okay.
So I am a naturopathic physician. I use science-based innovative medicine in order to help address the causes of disease and actually work in prevention to help chronic disease not happen. And then, so I have all of these science-based innovations that I can do that are also natural. And then there's an element, I loved listening to the last guests' little bit of what I heard with ritual, because I'm also a master level hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner and coach. And so there's so much of where the mind and the body and the spirit and the emotions and the environment all integrate into what we are and who we are and how our essence shines through in this reality. And so by implementing all of those pieces, like I want to be effective in helping people to have the energy and the power and the vitality to bring forth their visions. Like I think we're all born with a song that we are meant to sing. And so much gets in the way of that. And you can get all esoteric or, even political or even, cultural and see the things that kind of hold us back. And then how do you really enable people in the best way? Maybe empower is a better word. How do you empower people to really be brave enough, to be well enough, and to be safe enough to really bring their visions to life? And so in that way, I think that melding those pieces together makes me very innovative, because I do have, I've worked with stem cells and chelation and, PRP and exosomes and, foundational botanical work. And then there's also that innovation of bringing it all together as far as, genetics and, ancestral trauma, and how do you work with the entire being. And I want to be effective, right? I want to be effective.
I will say that one of the only people who has really helped me on a deeper level, at least to start this process off, was my naturopath. And I love a naturopath because they don't just go, what is the symptom that is going on? Let's fix the symptom. They go, I see the pattern of your symptoms. I'm seeing the core of all of those symptoms minimize into this. How can we solve this as well as prevent further things in the future from happening with all of these many tools that we can see which one works for you?
Right.
And I'm like, where are these people in every industry where I can finally feel like somebody cares about who I am and my future?
Right. And it's interesting because there's a massive spectrum of health from where, like you're waking up every day going, woohoo, I feel awesome. Like, let's go get it. Right. And then being like, well, I'm a little bit tired and my hormones are a little bit off, to, like my blood pressure and my cholesterol are going up, to autoimmune diseases and cancer and, dementias. And so there's this massive spectrum, and naturopathy can help with probably 90% of that. Right. And so if you had, that awareness of, how to find people that can support your wellness without drugs and surgery and interventions, then you wouldn't necessarily need to go to that end of the spectrum as quickly, I don't think.
Yep.
I'm glad
Exactly.
you had success with that.
Yeah. I just thought you had a question, Beth. That's why I stopped.
No.
Oh,
I
okay. So Dr. Heather, what would be one of those core messages? Because there's so much that a naturopath can do, but with your story, what kind of message comes out through your story where you just need people to kind of take
I need people to understand that there is a massive assault on their being through environmental chemicals.
Ugh.
And I don't think that that's given enough airtime. And then you've got, detoxes that are like, well, I did the master cleanse. And it's like, I mean, that's very good. And so, it's estimated that people eat about 5 grams of microplastic a week, which is about the size of a credit card. And they are small enough to get into your cells, like in the cells, and gum up the cellular machinery. Then you've got all of the BPA and the phthalates that are integrated into those chemical plastics. And we don't know. They get into your liver. They've been found in the liver, the spleen, the heart, the lungs, you name it, kidneys. And so how do you not only avoid that assault just from plastic, right? And when you buy a fleece blanket and wash it, that releases plastic into the waterways that can't necessarily be cleaned out in conventional means, right? So my practice now is primarily teaching people how to avoid the exposures and then also how to get it out effectively, because there's a lot of things out there that aren't necessarily effective in removing those exposures. So, they're hormone disruptors, they're neurological, they cause brain damage and nerve damage. They dysregulate the immune system. They can make diabetes worse. They have cardiovascular impacts. Like these chemicals, there's over 85,000 industrial chemicals that are registered toxic with the EPA. Most of them have never been tested for human health impact by themselves, because you're not really getting enough to really be concerned about.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure. Oh yeah, sure. So then from there you look at the research that has been done, and I do research for certain labs as far as looking at the literature in medical research, seeing what these impacts are and what to do about them. And they're all done by themselves, right? They're not even done in synthesis of all of these horrifying things. And then we see that they do have impacts at much lower concentrations than they thought. And so how do you protect yourselves and your children and your loved ones? And so I remember I did research in 1999 is when I really started doing research on the impacts of environmental chemicals on health. So it's been a while. And I remember just being like, oh my God, I'm being poisoned from every angle. I'm just going to eat chocolate and drink champagne.
Right. I mean, we just breathe. We breathe it in all the time, right? I mean, you can't avoid it.
And so it's like, how do you have your air filters, and how do you filter your water, and how do you make the best choices as far as what food you're buying? And then, how do you, there's uranium and radium in the city water where I live. Your Brita filter is not getting that out.
No. So can I ask you that? I do Berkey. Do you recommend Berkey?
Absolutely. That's this one. Okay. They just did a study on the gravity feds, and it's definitely the best one.
Okay.
What is a Berkey?
It's a Berkey water filter. It's a charcoal-based filter. You have like these little charcoal tubes in the top, and all the water comes through, and what you get on the bottom is what you drink.
And so you get the white and the black filters. So get them both.
Okay.
And they just screw in together. And that will give you the best spectrum of.
That's the white is the fluoride. Is that correct?
Fluoride and other solvents.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have that one. I need to do that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask a bit of a personal question then, Dr. Heather?
I don't mind. I'm an open book.
So am I. That's kind of why I do this. So you had mentioned in your list of bodily systems and organs that can be affected by these, liver. And I'm just like, oh my God, I have had a leaking liver for years. Nobody knows why. I've had so many tests, and basically all we're doing is let's constantly do blood work every 6 months, which hasn't happened since COVID, to just see if it gets worse. I don't drink. I've never done drugs. I've never tried smoking. But yet, you know, there's these issues.
So you
Could
have
something like toxins be adding
Absolutely.
to... Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So is it high liver enzymes?
Yeah. So my GGT is high. Yeah. So for those who don't know, basically the GGT is registering bile from your liver, the thing that helps you break things down, in your bloodstream, which should not be happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like liver cell damage. So there's something that's killing the cells of your liver. I would absolutely, you can go, are you in the States?
No, I'm in Canada.
Okay. So in the States, we have a website. So it's ewg.org. And they're one of the best resources for products, skincare, sunscreens, food. They do the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 for the, right? So that's the guys. Okay. They have a tap water database that we can put our zip codes in the States that will tell you like what's in your water. And so I would look for something similar in Canada.
So I just bought a house and I made sure that I got good water testing done. So I have the report of everything that they've tested for and what ratios it was in.
Good. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So then it would be an interesting thing to see like where else.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that you could really look at is mycotoxins, which is the molds.
I'm gonna look that up too.
Canada's pretty, you know, like Canada's got a lot of humidity in most of its. Yeah.
Oh, I don't even like the picture that popped up.
No. No. So that's what I would look at. So it's not like toxicants are chemical impurities and things that can cause damage. Toxins come from like E. coli toxin or from mycotoxins, right? So when you talk about toxins, usually they're biochemical and biological, whereas the toxicants are chemical.
Good to know. I didn't even know that was a word.
Most people don't.
The things you learn.
Wow.
I'm just double checking the time. So I love this message about toxins. I heard a little bit of it starting probably 20 years ago, but there wasn't really a whole lot back then. You said 99. I was like, that's when my husband and I started dating. But I love the progression of it. And I love how people are starting to have more of those types of conversations and be mindful, because I drink from glass instead of plastic now, like those kinds of things. What are your favorite ways to share this message with people?
So I have a course that I built that teaches people how to detoxify their entire life, basically. So it's not only the chemical toxicants, it's the emotional, it's the environmental, it's the, you know, mental, like the self-talk that we do, and then also contains the, you know, supplementation necessary in the diet and the lifestyle shifts that can help detoxify people from these poisons that come in all kinds of different forms. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I try to I think that social media is a bit of a toxic experience. And like, I'm not on it, you know, as much as I could be, but I also have a podcast and I share a lot of it on YouTube. And yeah.
So what made you decide to start your own podcast? I hear that a lot, but then for people to continue past about episode 10 is so rare.
Well, I got to episode 40.
Whoa,
and
nice.
I was like, I don't even know if I have anything else to say.
Oh my God.
I think that the reason why I really started it is called twofold. And it's called The Bad Girl's Guide to Living Well. And it's like, I had a boss at a practice that wanted me to design a program so that people would get messages on their phone like every 5 to 10 minutes, like, are you drinking your water? Are you getting up and moving? Are you doing your deep breathing? Did you eat this? And like, so regimented and so like, you never have a drop of alcohol, you never eat sugar, you never, right? So it was just this really hard line perspective that I was like, nope, like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know who's going to do that. And so it was more like, how do you insulate yourself from living on the planet Earth effectively, so that you can have a donut if you want without bombing your health, which, I mean, there's a lot of people that are starting to see like how simple things that we took as normal can really have detrimental effects that are, you know, like, well, I ate wheat for 25 years and all of a sudden I can't. It's like, yeah, there's different reasons for that. And also, I love to talk. I love to have conversations. And I love to like see what people think. And I was having incredible conversations with my community that I really wanted to share with others so that they could sit down and hear what it's like, you know, from our perspective, whether it's naturopaths or, you know, entrepreneurs or whatever aspect, to share the conversations. But the funny thing is a lot of my friends were too shy to go on the podcast. Oh, well, I guess we'll just talk at people for an hour.
Wow.
You know? So it was a really good experience because it got me very comfortable doing it. And I think, and I also have a massive amount of, I don't even know what to call it, information to
content.
Content. Content creator.
Lots of content.
I was playing Life with my son. There's a new like version of Life. He's 8. And the job that I got was social media influencer. And I was like,
oh, that's funny.
Oh, wow.
They updated the game called
job. Life. That's hilarious. I love it.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah,
have you thought
it? Lawyer.
No, exactly. Lawyer, doctor, fireman. No. Have you thought about, this isn't a question, this is like an idea for you. Have you thought about just shortening your podcast, doing like a 10-minute, 15-minute podcast where you can come on with tips?
Yeah, I think that I've started doing a little bit of that with like Instagram lives and more in the YouTube format. And I also have been chopping up all of that content to release again. And so it's a little bit overwhelming.
Sure.
Look at all of that and what I really want to say, but yes.
Okay, no, that's awesome because you have so much to share, and you know the world needs to keep getting that information from you. I mean, I'm just loving listening to you today. I mean, I have like a ton of personal questions, but I'm going to skip those. So,
I'm going to ask
to you separately.
Right? Yeah, email me.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I grew up with with this mindset. Actually, my dad went to a naturopath when I was a kid. We went to chiropractors when we were kids. So my mom taught me how to read labels. Like I have all food labels. I've had a lot of indoctrination from a young age, for which I am super grateful. What a lot of the world has not.
Right.
Where do you start with people who have not had any of that education?
I think that the most powerful way to do it is to really have them connect their behavior with how they feel, right? So it's a self-awareness discovery. And most people they're not embodied. They're not really paying attention to how they feel. They wake up in the morning and their life just goes, right? And so you've got kids and dogs and jobs and commutes and all of this stuff that we don't do our self-care and we don't really pay attention to how we feel. And it's an epidemic, right? Whether how we feel emotionally, how we feel mentally, how we feel physically. And I think that was part of the journey. I mean, I've done some detoxification myself. I live a very clean lifestyle, but I detoxed for 2 years before I had my son so that he had as little of a body burden passed on by me when he was born, right? Because you can see Environmental Working Group did a study, I think it was in 2005, showing that there were over 200 industrial chemicals found in umbilical cord blood. Which means that they're crossing the placenta and we're having babies they're born toxic. And so then you don't wonder, why do we have ADD, ADHD? Why do we have skyrocketing? Why do we have, behavioral problems and neurological problems? But I think that, so I definitely live the detox lifestyle. And also I didn't pay any attention to my body for most of my life. I've been blessed with very good health, but I'm kind of held together by paste and rubber bands. Like I had a lot of physical damage and trauma. Okay. And so I think that to kind of get away from the pain, I became very outside of just like not paying attention to it until it got so bad I had to address it. But I think that when you help people connect, even with a simple food diary, help people connect. When you eat this donut, how do you feel after? Most people feel terrible after, right?
Yes,
when you eat this carrot, how do you feel after? Because there's this massive disinformation going on about, processed foods are just as healthy. Like I watch Haro. So do you guys know Haro? It's like help a reporter out. They send out a list every yes, okay?
Okay.
And so I watch it come through, and one that came, I'll screenshot shoot it and like send it to friends and family and just be like, can you believe that they're even asking this question? Like a study was just done illustrating that walking upstairs can help cardiovascular health. Right? So we would like comments on this, and it's like, how are you so disconnected from your own body to think that, what was the Stairmaster invented for? I mean, like, what do you think like cardio is for? Right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
We're going to waste time talking about moving your body, helping your heart. I mean, come on. So I think that getting people in touch with their body and how they really feel, separate from the antidepressants that they're on, separate from, the other things that they're doing, like the addictions and the behaviors and the, how are they managing how they feel?
Yeah.
No judgment. We all do it, right? Like, and really connect into how their body feels, I think can be massively motivating to look at how they're living their lives. But I also have a massive amount of education as far as,
sure.
This is why sleep is good. This is why vitamins are good. This is why movement is good, and really breaking it down. And I just wrote a book about the fundamentals of health.
Ooh, what's your book?
It's called The Wilde Way.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Yeah. And it's forthcoming. It hasn't been fully published yet. We're just going through the last edits.
Okay.
And so I'll let you know when that is, but it's just talking about a lot of these things and how do you support your wellness.
I'm looking at your Instagram, looking for it.
It's not there yet. I'll put it up.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. So the thing that I'm super aware of, in reading Michael Pollan's books, right? In reading his books, the Omnivore's Dilemma and all that, he talks a lot about the industrial food complexes at different levels. Right. And the thing that really hits me is that there are a lot of people out there, who are at a very low income level.
Right.
There's so little education. They feel like I can't afford to live like that. I can't afford to do that. And I think about that a lot when I can go into a store and I can choose to buy the thing that has fewer ingredients, but is more expensive, which always kills me. And some people can't make that choice financially. Like, what do you say to people when they're in that space?
I have a friend that says she can't afford enlightenment.
Oh, wow.
Right?
I've never heard that. That's
well, just because she can't do all of the retreats and she can't do all of the, yoga
sure.
and quit her job and do that, right? And I think that it's a really problematic piece that you can't afford health. Like, how can you not afford health? Like, especially in the US, naturopathic medicine isn't covered by insurance.
No, it is not.
It's out of pocket. And so that was part of, my drive to be able to create the platforms that I've created educationally so that people can look at the Dirty Dozen, for example, which is the 12 most pesticide contaminated fruits and vegetables that you should always buy organic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so then the other ones like avocados, you know, who doesn't matter. Bananas, you're good.
Yeah.
But the things like grapes and strawberries and broccoli, and like they change every year. And so trying to prioritize that, and then also just prioritize, it's a really big problem.
Yeah, it is. It makes me so sad at like what we've created in our culture as like the normal mindset. Because years ago, before all the processed food, before McDonald's, guess what? People ate. They ate a lot healthier because they didn't have all those options. It's just this mindset of what we've learned and developed and been the media has put out there, right? So people it's just really a lack of education. And then also creating food deserts that are, you know.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I think that one of my dreams is to have like a kid farm where I remember going through the grocery store with my son, who is, he's 8, and he came home from school and he's like, Mom, I didn't eat my chicken nuggets. And I was like, why not, buddy? And he's like, well, they tasted GMO and I'm pretty sure they were caged. Right. And I'm thinking like, I created a monster, right? Like, of course I created a monster. But I remember going through the grocery store when he was really little and looking at what was in other people's carts and just, oh my God, this is what we're building our babies out of, right?
Yes.
Like these, you know, chemical, I'm not going to curse, but like a lot of chemical
garbage,
good one, that, that we're just feeding, you know, and what they build their brains out of. And it's something that is really problematic and very troubling. But I do think that if you prioritize what you're eating, right? Like you don't buy the chips and the soda and you put that somewhere else.
Yes.
But then the problem is those chips and soda is so chemically addictive.
Yes.
Right. And so it's a much bigger problem because then you have, you know, neurological things that are going on with the sugar being so addictive. The corn syrup is a, you know, chemical garbage mess. And so it's a complicated cultural issue.
It is.
You know, really I live in California and they just outlawed Skittles.
Me too.
Right?
Oh, they did? Oh, I didn't know that.
The colors. So the coloring in Skittles or those artificial colors are terrible.
Where are you in California?
I'm in Sacramento.
Oh, I'm in Sonoma.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're close.
We should go to wine country. We could talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yay.
That's awesome. No, thank you for sharing all of that. I totally vibe with all of it. Love it. I love what you're doing. Thank you for being one of the people out there doing this.
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, the climate for us is not friendly.
No.
Right. Like we get discredited everywhere. And I love, you know, when they ask, you know, for people to comment on different studies or different diets, and they're asking for, you know, conventional doctors who at the most get an elective of like 1 hour of nutrition, right? Yes. And registered dietitians who are the ones in charge of hospital food, right? Mm-hmm. And so like, let's look at who do you really want to coach you or to educate you about what you should be eating, right? Like,
yes. Yeah.
But it's hopefully through the educational platform, I think that when I do my vision statement, it's like empower through education, right? Because that's, you know, when you can shift people's perspective, you know, with actionable things like eat more vegetables.
Yeah.
But I also think pointing out the hypocrisy and how ridiculous most of it is like, it's nutso. It's crazy. Do you know who makes the food pyramid in the States?
The FDA?
No, you'd think.
Yeah.
Think, right? Maybe the CDC, right? So the guys in charge of health. Huh?
I said Dairy Farmers of Canada.
Yeah.
It's the USDA. So it's the guys that grow the corn, the wheat, the soy, the dairy, right? They're like, you know what you should eat the most of?
Yeah, exactly.
And so
hours.
Hours.
Right.
Yeah, totally good for you, right? And yeah, so yeah.
What's interesting, the thing that I see in all of this, and which I think is a theme right now, very much in our culture, of you have to be, remember the brand you 50 or whatever it was, that was that book that came out years ago. I think there's such this thing of like, you need to be really truly the leader of your life. Right. And I think years ago, it was easier for people to follow and be okay, I guess, but we have to make our own decisions. We have to know what works for us. We have to know what is healthy for us. And it's so easy. It's easy to abdicate our power.
Yeah, because it's easier to abdicate your power.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
In short term.
Yes.
Right? And so then it's like, well, I can't afford to eat entirely organic. And I get it. I mean, I get it. It's a significant expense. But how expensive is autoimmune disease, cancer, dementia, right? Cardiovascular disease. How about open heart surgery, right? Like, how expensive is that? And so it's that awareness and that combination of seeing cause and effect. I think that can be very powerful, and people want it. I mean, most of the time, and I know that I work with a very specialized population that's looking for it, but most of the time when you go to the doctor and you're like, I really don't feel good, and the only time they have, they're just going to okay, chart, so I don't get sued, chart. Okay. And, you have a stomach ache. Okay, great. Here's a PPI and good luck. Right? And I don't think that anybody really goes into medicine for the glory or for the money. I think they go into it because they want to help people, and then they're forced into this box of what they can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy, really. But I do think that people want something different. And so communicating that there are things that are different. And accountability is tremendously powerful too, right? Like having the accountability of, being the captain of your own ship.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yes.
But it's also exhilarating.
Yeah. Well, it's terrifying because we're never taught it from a young age. And it's something you then have to learn. And that means a lot of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to share that for a few years, me and my family, we were going to the food bank. So you do not get to choose the type of food that comes into your house. And on top of that, 90% of the food is something that can be stored on a shelf for years.
Yes.
And then there's that thought of, well, is it expired yet? Or is it so close to the expiry that you need to eat it in the next 2 days? That's the kind of food that you get from a food bank.
Right.
And then on top of that, having a food budget, I still try to this day, even though I'm not going to the food bank as much or at all anymore. Yay, which is amazing. I budget my food for $2 a day, $2 a meal per person. So $6. Can you feed yourself on $6 a day per person? And that includes snacks and drinks. Many people, they're like, I spend double that on breakfast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So then I was always in that mindset of how can I get the best food for me and my health, because my health was shitty, leaking liver and all these other things. And at the same time, have food on my table and not go hungry. So it was a lot of frozen vegetables because they were so much better than canned.
Yes,
It was
definitely.
a lot of meal prep. It was a lot of how do I not waste food? Because that's the other side of it. So much of what people buy is actually wasted.
Yeah.
So it was like very meticulous, and you can do it.
Yeah.
It's just takes a lot of time and effort to do.
Yeah.
And I can breathe more now, which is nice.
I think it's 1 in 5 children in the US go to bed hungry. right? And so when you talk about like, how do you really revolutionize, culture? I think that patio gardens, I know in Canada, right? Like you don't have the growing city.
I just put my herbs out back and then we have
California, right? But think about it. Like if you can grow your microgreens, right? Like you buy a seed packet, you grow your microgreens, you use herbs, you learn how to do that, and you get outside of that corporate bubble and are able to get some agency that way, because I think that the further we get from nature, the more ill we become.
Yes.
And so how do you grow things, which just takes soil and water, and sun.
Also foraging. I have many videos of me on Monday Morning Mindfulness where I'm like, it's strawberry season. And you see me like in those little bushes eating the tiny little strawberries.
Which are bigger than the big ones.
Yeah.
They're wild. They don't come big. You have to get the little ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
But like even that kind of stuff, that's how I would supplement my diet. But I didn't go and say that on the video. I'm hungry today. You just go and you eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just so much here. We have about 5 minutes left. So I want to make sure that people know where to find you. You said that you're kind of on social media, but
I am on social, like that.
How do we find you?
Okay. So it's Naturopathic MD. And that should bring up it. So it's actually, there it is.
Yeah, you had it open already, didn't you?
I did. I found it right away.
And so following there, I am committed to having more of a presence there because I'm not on TikTok. I can't do it.
You find your favorite ones and then you just play with it. People will play back. It's all good.
So I'm good with Instagram. And I think that it's fun because, you'll get the foundational pieces. I also have a pretty extensive mailing list and newsletter, which they can also sign up for through my website, which is naturopathicmd.com. You can go up and you have an option to do a health assessment that you can download. And it'll show you like where are the areas of your health that need more. I created kind of like a health wheel, like the life coaching wheel, and you look at aspects of health, right?
Yeah.
And so all of the different pieces and where you can improve, and then that will automatically put you on a mailing list, and then you get like 30 days of wellness, which I think is a good place to start. And so then that's got some videos and it's got information that way.
Oh, I see your website now. I was like, yay, it's a little like map.
It's a little map. It's a choose your own health adventure. Right?
I loved those books growing up.
Right, me too. It's like, how do you, and it's interesting too, because you can look at like medicine can really be an algorithm, right? And so there's pieces of, like let's first look at what you're eating. Then let's look at how you're sleeping. Are you moving your body? But then there's so much personalization that can go in there through functional testing, right? So let's look at what are your food allergies? How are they feeding into your inflammation? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite tests because it's like, let's stop pouring gasoline on the fire of what's going on in your body.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't eat the chocolate, Laura. You're lactose intolerant. But it's so good.
It's so tough. It's so tough.
I know.
But that's where, you get in touch with your body. Is this really worth it? Is this really worth it?
Yes.
I've discovered dark cocoa. Not cocoa, dark cocoa. So then I actually get the taste of chocolate instead of just like a milky, chalky chocolate.
Yeah. Right.
Makes everything taste better. No milk involved.
No milk involved.
Nice.
So Heather, I would love to know one final question before we go, just to kind of be a little more playful.
Sure.
If you could have something crazy cool, no logic involved, like snap your fingers, genie wish, what would you love that would be crazy cool to happen this year? I know it's a hard question. Everything. I want everything.
Right? I think I'd like to go on safari this year.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, I think I'd like to do that. Like all of a sudden I get the opportunity. I live a lot of my life with just saying yes, right? Like, things show up. And I did a year of just saying yes. And it was an incredible year. And then I did a kind of year of integration, putting my head down and working a lot.
Yeah.
But crazy cool, I think safari would be good. But I would also really like I've been putting a lot of work into like the educational pieces that I'm doing. Right. And so part of this whole process now is I've got it all built. And contrary to belief, like if you build it, it's not always something that people like just stumble upon and find, right? And so now I'm learning how to not only have like the excellence in medicine, but also how do I really get the message out so that people can find it. So I would really like to help, 1,000 people next year just find it and be able to make changes in their life. Because I went into medicine because I was going through my own struggles, and I recognized that if you can shift someone's health into a place of, wellness and feeling more positive about life, you shift an entire universe of existence, right? Like you shift someone's entire universe. And so like, I would love to really have an impact to help shift what we're doing as a human race.
Yeah.
Aww.
It's awesome. Well, the other thing to remember too is when you impact that person's life, they're going to impact a lot of other people too.
Yeah,
it's a ripple. One person. Yeah, more than one.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you, Dr. Heather, for joining us and for Beth staying as long as you did. I know that you said you might have to go out early. You don't?
That's okay. I don't have a hard stop, but at this time, I just need some time in between this and the next thing.
Okay, good.
It was nice to meet you both.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Conversation. Thank you so much. Well, okay, I want to just also, since we don't have a guest yet in the background, give you that time. Was there something that you wanted to say that you didn't have a chance to share yet? Always that open form. Yeah.
No, I think I would just like to have people really hear and feel that they can feel better, that they can shift their life into something that's more vital and more powerful, and that, living a life of quiet desperation does not have to be what they're doing. Like there are other ways, and it starts with, looking in the mirror and believing in yourself. Like I love that thing that was going around where you look in the mirror, you go, give yourself a high five, right? Like smile at yourself. So often, we look at ourselves and say horrifying things that we wouldn't say to our worst enemies.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where we can really find a lot of power and recognize that you're not alone. There are ways to improve. You can have a life that you love to live, and it is worth it.
Awesome.
I'm going to share something with you. Earlier this week, I think it was yesterday, the story came up about my daughter when she was, 3 or 4-ish. She's in the bathroom and she's crying. So, of course, me being mom, I run down. I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she's looking in the mirror. She's like, I'm just so beautiful.
Oh, my God. That's amazing.
And it doesn't matter how many times I sit and tell that story. It's so good. And I'm like, why can't we keep that confidence?
Right.
Every year of our lives moving forward.
Right. I have a little bit of a similar one if I have time for it.
Sure. No guest yet. Go ahead.
So when my son was 5, we went camping together, and we're going into the state park in California. And the woman's like, have you ever camped in bear country before? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And he's in the back seat and he's like, wait, woman, bears? Like bears? So all night, like we're roasting marshmallows, bears, 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 right? Like you're sitting around the fire, like bears, 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 mama, right? So finally I'm like, dude. So I went to Cornell, my brothers went to Brown. Kieran's favorite like baby has been a bear. And I'm like, dude, don't worry, you've got bear medicine. And he's like, what's bear medicine? I'm like, it's when the spirit of the bear recognizes itself in you and he recognizes family and you're good. And he's like, oh, okay. Goes to sleep. And I'm like, right. So next morning we're walking down to Lake Tahoe and it's a paved wide road, right? And a bear walks out of the bush in front of us. And I was like, oh my God. And so I have him under one arm, and like, I'm wondering, I'm looking for bear cubs. Am I going to have to fight this bear? Yeah. And so the bear just kind of looks at us and is like, what's up? And walks away. And Kieran's like, hey mom, look, there's a bear. There's a bear. I'm like, mom, there's a bear. And I'm like, dude, you were shitting your pants last night. Like, what? All of a sudden you're not worried about a bear? And he's like, well, mom, you told me I had bear medicine. And I thought, oh my God, right? Like, these things that we say to our children, they integrate, right? So I committed. I'm like, I'm only going to speak to him to be powerful and smart and talented and, positively, because he's integrating all of that. And then I was like, I should probably speak to myself that way.
Right?
Yeah, that story of my daughter in the mirror.
It's so good.
I just love that story.
It's a great
story. She inspired me in so many ways over the years. Like, the wisdom of kids under 5 blows my mind. But that story made me think, okay, well, when I was doing mirror work, I learned to look in the mirror, which I have over here, which I think is making the lighting worse. Oh my God. And so now I look at the mirror, and before I get dressed in the morning, I can't be dressed yet. Before I get dressed in the morning, I look at myself in the eye in the mirror and I go, damn those curves. And it doesn't matter how I feel or how I look or if I gained weight or lost, does not matter. Nice. The only thing I need to say is, damn those curves, with the attitude. You got to have the attitude.
I love that.
Because then you're like, my body is the thing that is constantly loving me no matter what I do to it, which can be a lot sometimes. So if I could appreciate it for being the only thing that ever always serves me,
right?
The least I can do is look in the mirror naked and go, damn those curves.
Yeah.
So good. This is kind of bugging me. Like, I feel like I'm in a cave right now.
You're fine.
It's dark in Canada, but
well, it's a sunny day, and so everything's kind of weird. And I don't know. This might help. Oh, it actually does help.
Yeah, that did help. That is good.
I don't know where our sorry. I don't know where our next guest is, but you're more than welcome to stay a little bit longer, and then, like, around the 15-minute mark, we can decide whether or not to continue or just say goodbye to everybody. It's all good.
Sounds good. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk more.
It's kind of free flow from here on out.
All right.
So then you can come and go as you please. I can chat after you guys leave. Just give me a heads up. It's all good. So then, what is not necessarily in your own stories or line of work, but what has been on your mind about speaking, about podcasting, about writing that has kind of been rooted in fear, or that you've stopped yourself, just so that we can serve the audience in that way? Because they're in that mindset. I want to speak. I want to be on podcasts. I want to write books. And then there's that hesitation.
Right. So I have a brother who's in the same profession as I am, and he followed me to school, and he is a absolute superstar. He is I would say, easily one of the best physicians on the planet. Wow. And he is just a wonderful person. And he has a significant dose of imposter syndrome, right? So even though he is this brilliant, amazing doctor, we were talking about it last week, and that's why I bring it up, is like, I think that especially in an area or a realm of, like, I'm in medicine, but I'm in alternative medicine, and it's got roots in traditional medicine. It's got roots in shamanism. It's got roots in biochemistry and physiology and medicine, right? And so, then you've got all of these external pressures of people saying, you're wrong. That's not right. Like, I disagree with you. Like, I did something on YouTube about how TSH is a completely ridiculous thing to test for thyroid, right? It's like asking your grandmother, like, how's your sex life? Or how's my sex life, right? Because it's 2 full generations away from what we actually care about. And so why would you look at that marker in the blood and say, oh, it's fine, it's normal, when it's not even close to being an active hormone, And so I got like a couple thumbs down on that video, and it's like, oh, okay, right? But it's just about feeling confident enough to share your message, and recognize that there really is no right or wrong. And I think I found in myself that I know that there are people out there that are looking for what I have to say. And there are other doctors out there that are the perfect fit for others, right? Like, healing is such an incredibly personalized journey that you really want to find somebody that you resonate with, and that is, going to go through their own healing in their assistance of you, right? Like, we're all connected. But I think that imposter syndrome is one where I don't even know where it comes from. I think, we were highly criticized children. And so I think that we've got residuals of that, right? Like, there's this perfectionism and this, idea of like, everything needs to be done just so. Right. And so I think that comes down into other areas professionally and in relationships. And so, that, damn those curves, damn that brain on you, right? Like, how do you support yourself? How do you be your own best advocate and believe that you do have something important to say that will help others to go along their own paths?
Somebody explained imposter syndrome to me with visuals. I'm very much a visual person. I need information to like play a video in my head.
Yeah.
If I can't play the video, then I just don't get it. So somebody described it like this. We're all walking up a hill, and there's those people that are like halfway up the hill and they think they know it all because they're almost there, and they're just like, and they have so much confidence, but they know actually very little. They just know more, like slightly more than the average person. But then there's you, who has gotten to the top or so close to the top of that hill that you've seen over the hill and realized there's an even bigger one and like 20 others around you. Right. And now you're surrounded by all of this stuff that you don't know yet.
Right.
And so then you look at the people and you're like, well, who am I to say that I know the top of the mountain when there's all of this in front of me that I know nothing about? But the truth is that you're at the top of the mountain and everybody's still below you.
Right.
So to just recognize that as long as you're 1 or 2 steps ahead of the person that you're trying to serve, and you're not trying to pretend to know those 20 mountains, you're absolutely fine. Okay. You're one of the perfect people. Because if you're in your depths and your struggles, do you need a world guru to solve your problem? No. But at the same time, that world guru is probably so far ahead of you that you stumble trying to reach where they are, because there's so many steps in between that they're like, why don't you just get this? Because I haven't done those little steps yet to even get to the first milestone to where you are. So I love that idea of imposter syndrome. And I keep thinking to myself, am I 1 or 2 steps ahead of the version of me that I'm trying to serve?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then would I want me to not say something to myself in any moment? The answer is no. I'm desperate in that moment. I need that version of me right now to come help. Yeah. So stop being in my head about trying to know everything, and just know that I'm enough for now. And if I keep learning, I'll always be enough for now. I don't know what that says.
You are enough.
You are enough. Yeah. It's so simple. I love that.
Yep.
But that confident person, that cocky one, oh my God. This works so much easier or harder.
Yeah. And I think that it's interesting too, as far as, videos and podcasting and being highly critical of how we look. Like, that's been part of my experience. I'll look back at, videos that I did and I'll be like, oh my God. And why? Right? Then, men don't seem to have as much of an issue with that historically. Right. And so I'm just going to
go with the flow.
Just go with the flow.
Yeah.
And like it's not about how I look anyway. It's about the message that I have.
Yeah.
So,
oddly enough, in the family I grew up in, my dad is that way and my mother didn't care.
there's differences, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting.
I love that difference. And then was there a time, I'm going to pick on you a bit, Beth, since you're still here with us and you're one of my favorite people to talk to.
Thank you. I do need to leave though, but
right now?
At the half hour. So I've got like a minute or so.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know if there was something on your journey for sharing your message that was difficult for you.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, talk about feeling like an imposter. So you probably don't know this, Dr. Heather, but I call myself a motherhood story coach. So I work with women who are still on their way to motherhood. And we look at all of the stories and interpretations, all the messages that they're carrying that are creating this like cloud of confusion in their lives. A lot of women, especially in their 30s, get very stuck on this. And I can talk on and on and on about it. However, just to cut to the chase, the thing that has been the hardest for me is that I am somebody who missed motherhood. And so this is how I got into what I'm doing. Thought I would coach women who had missed motherhood, but then realized there's a reason why this is happening, what's going on in our culture, that so many women end up where I am. And so as I started to look at it, there were a lot of things I uncovered, but for a long time, and I actually had 2 men coaches say to me independently, like, because you've heard it, but you're just saying, I just need to be further along than the person I'm coaching. And so because I'm not a mom, it was said to me, well, people come to coaches because they want that. And if you're not a mom, how can you coach them? It's just like a double whammy, knife in my heart. And the thing that I finally realized was that in a culture, when you are a minority, which we consider ourselves childless, not by choice women, the minority people actually see the intentional and unintentional acts of discrimination. Like we register those. We don't register only the intentional, which is what people in the majority will usually register. And so it gives me a sight into what's really going on in this world that women who haven't gone through this don't have. So that's what I bring to women, which is completely opened up, my path opened up what it is that I've created for women to embrace on their own, to create their own empowerment, to bring ownership to what they're doing, rather than be stuck in this old paradigm of thinking that we still have, living in a culture that doesn't align with where that old paradigm came from. So anyway.
So I want to thank you for that, just because it helps me to be a little more clear on what I mean by one step ahead. It's not necessarily one step ahead on the story. It could be one step ahead on the mindset. It could be one step ahead on the insight. It could be one step ahead in all of these many areas that support the story that aren't necessarily the story.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, well, that's why I talk about emotions a lot, because it's not about your story or the things that happen to you. The example I've been using lately is 2 people have been adopted. One person has abandonment issues and the other person doesn't. Why? It's our perspective of what have happened, which is why that's what I want people to focus on, not the thing that happened. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for that. Because there's still that little voice sometimes that goes,
thank you.
Who
Sometimes
am I
I forget that that's how people think. So I appreciate it. See, this is what I love about the conversation, is we go back and forth, and it's so good. So you do need to leave then, Beth?
I do need to go. I need a little break before I'm actually recording a podcast with someone in a half hour. So
come back soon.
All right. Love you too. Bye.
Nice
To meet you too. I'll be in touch.
Great.
All right, cool. See ya.
Bye.
Here we go. Okay. So then we can continue on the conversation if you want.
Sure. I just got an earthquake emergency alert.
Is everything okay? If you need to go, again.
I mean, nothing's shaking. There's nothing.
You're like, my pictures are fine.
I got a good table here. Birds are still singing, so I don't know where it would be, but I just got an emergency alert. My table's making me look
like it's Halloween right now. I just want to have the light come up my nose.
Like a flashlight, right?
I think I need to redesign my office. I have so many lights in my face right now. And I still look like I'm this. Yeah.
Maybe it's that dark wall behind
I do have the dark wall, but then I have lights behind me to help light it up. And then I have the mirror to help light up the wall. And it's still, yeah. I need to do an actual assessment of my room and the sun path and all of that and get more lighting. Either way, I'm just going to make fun of it.
Yeah, just make fun of it. It's good.
It's all good. So then I love this conversation about some of the fears that we've had along the way. Mm-hmm. Did you say that you were a speaker too, like on stages?
I have been. Yeah, I've done medical conferences and then presentations. And yeah, I used to do a weekly health education seminar that was part of a marketing package, right? And so I was one of those people that send out the mailers, and then you go to dinners and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Were you ever afraid of doing that?
I was really nervous about the medical one, right? Because you're getting up in front of other doctors and you're talking about some medical research and it's different, right? So that was definitely more, and it caused a lot of nervousness and anxiety, right? To be in front of peers like that. But I taught for about 20 years. So I taught high school, I taught doctors, I taught nurse practitioners and medical assistants. And, I've done a lot of presentations that way. And so I had a lot of confidence with that. And I was also on stage when I was younger. So yes, it all comes together. Like there's different parts of your life that just come all and get pieced together, like that's part of our lives, I think.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, I've been on the stage since I was 4.
Yeah.
Like, so 34 years of stage presence and experience. There's a big difference between performing, whether it's acting, singing, dancing, musical theater, whatever it happens to be, versus speaking. Speaking tends to be, you're a one-man show, a one-woman show, a one-person show. There's nothing else really to support you in the background. And so I completely understand why people want to have a PowerPoint presentation, why they want to put their entire speech as bullet points on their slides, like all of that. I get why they do it. The thing that really helped me was understanding that speeches don't have to be, I'm at a podium, I have to say it word for word, I have to plan out my hand gestures and all of that, because the thing that bothered me the most is with that acting background, you're told as a professional speaker to speak within the box, right? Here's your box where you have bent elbows. This is about all you could do with a robot, and you're speaking. And I'm from acting, so I'm like, acting things. But knowing the difference between when to use those things, when not to use those things, that comes with leaning into those experiences. So I remember in grade 10, this is what made the flip for me. I hated doing speeches, but I loved being on stage. So I'm up in front of my class, and my French teacher is giving us a project. She's like, I want you to do a speech. You can choose whatever it is because it's French, so it didn't really matter. She's just grading us on the French. And I was like, what am I going to do a speech about? I don't know. What am I kind of interested in right now? What would be really fun? And all of those philosophical questions, like if a tree falls in the forest and there's nothing there to hear it, does it make a sound? That was my speech, was debunking all of those and using science to prove an answer. So I didn't really know French, even though my dad is French, and I was never very good at English grammar. So trying to translate it into French was even worse. But I went from 70s in my French class to 80s just because of that talk. Because I went from being caught in my head with trying to learn and know and do it all right to, this is what I'm passionate about. I will find the words and the answers because it is inside of me already. I'm not trying to memorize it or trying to pull it out from something else. And that head to heart transition, that's what opened the floodgates to like everything else I've done.
I think that's the best message that you could give anybody, really.
Yeah. Do you have any tips, I guess? Let's go there. Do you have any tips for people who they're like right on that edge? They're like, I have this message and I know that I need to be on stage and I want to be on stage and I'm trying to be on stage. How do you give them some sort of tip to just help them flip over?
Like past the fear of it?
Just a little bit more. They just need that little push.
Like, let's look at the why. I think that really looking at the why can change we see it in health too. Like, why do you want to feel better? Well, I want to like play with my grandkids more, or I want to, make more money in my job, whatever it is. Like, why do you want, like, what's that feeling you're going for? Like, is it a calling? Is it like really connecting to that why for that motivation? I think is tremendously powerful, because if it's why, it's like, well, my business coach told me to do it.
I hear that so often. It's crazy.
Right. And so, but okay, well, why? Like, let's go down. Like, so your business coach told you to do it. Why? Well, because I want to grow my business. Well, why? Well, because I want to have more freedom. Well, why? Like, because I want to spend more time with my partner. Okay. Right. And so, like, what is that feeling you're really going for? Like, what is that underlying thing? Because if you can connect, well, my business coach told me to. Okay. Well, there's a reason. Right.
I see that's where many people get caught, is not just my coach told me to, but I know that books help me to share my message and get me more clients. Well, if writing is not your thing, if it is so filled with tension for you,
right,
find something else.
Yeah.
Like, maybe podcasting is your thing. I know a lot of people who have tried to write books. They're not writers. And every time they look at the screen and try to type something, it just kind of comes out as a garbled mess.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Some people are like that. Some people will use tools, maybe dictation, maybe a ghostwriter, something like that. But is that still a tension point for you? Because if it is, you might be better off starting a podcast. You might be better off doing a TED Talk.
Right.
You might be better off writing a book, like a children's book, where it's more imagery versus words. Right. There's so many ways.
And I think it's also very interesting. So part of the neurolinguistic programming that I do is looking at what are those underlying limiting beliefs, where it's like, where does it come from? Like, why don't you like to write? Like, why, for example, like you're sitting down at your computer and it's like, well, Mrs. Smith in third grade told me that right? And like, we don't even know it's there, right?
Mrs. So, like, in grade 9 or 10 wrote on my book summary.
Yes.
You will never be a writer.
Exactly. And children integrate that. Adults integrate that. And so it's like, what are these limiting beliefs? And how do you free yourself of them? Is tremendously powerful. It's like, well, I'm not smart. And it's health in everything. It's health, it's relationships, it's professionally. It's like, what are these things that we tell ourselves that keep us small?
Yep.
Right?
Those lies and the belief from earlier. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think, really figuring out like, what are these things that you're telling yourself? Are they true? And we all have them.
Ugh, I can't tell you the amount of stories. Like, I come from a small town and then I moved to the country, so it got even worse. And so there's all of those small town country girl kind of stories of, I'm limited in my success.
Right.
I don't deserve this.
Right.
Only these types of people get these types of opportunities, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera.
Yeah.
And so I found it tremendously powerful when I started to really bring awareness to it. Right. And I think that when life gets so uncomfortable, that you really start to pay attention, whether it's physically or relationship wise or professionally, And so really, like when you sit down and you start to write, or when you sit down, you think about it, like, what are these things? Like, what is this internal dialogue that you are saying to yourself? It is tremendously illuminating, because then you're like, oh my God. And it's like, when was the first time I heard that? Right? Like, what is that? Who is that? Like, where did that come from? Because it didn't come from inside you.
Yeah.
It came outside and you believed it. And so you can choose not to believe it.
One of my mentors, I can't remember, I've had a lot over the years. One of my mentors said to me one day, they said, anytime there's a voice in your head that says something, ask, whose voice is this? Like, where did that come from, as you were saying, but like, whose voice was it? Because then when you say whose, you're making that separation of, this isn't my voice.
Nope.
This isn't my ego. This isn't my imposter. This is somebody else's voice imparted into my brain that I'm still holding on to. I was like, oh, that's so good.
It's
so
really
then
good.
It makes you think, well, who said this to me? And now you can come back to those scenarios or those situations, and you can start to resolve those. We talked about the cracks in the foundation with Katharina earlier. I was like, yes, those moments cause the cracks in your foundation. You thought you were good, and then, no, you're not. So then how do we heal those? How do we seal those? So
and there's a lot of different ways. Right? And that's part of, personal development and growing into a true adult, I think. Right? When you start to parent yourself, and when you start to like heal yourself, and you start to look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, because we all have those cracks in our foundation.
That's so good. See, now I'm thinking about, okay, one of the things that scares me that I really want to do is, I love singing. I love power vocals. Like, I just was humming Evanescence, and then I wrote an intro for the Experts Bootcamp this weekend to Chantel's Impossible, only I wrote my own lyrics to it and said, it's possible as my intro. So I'm like, how do I put more of these types of things that I love into my everyday? Yes, they're scary. Yes, it takes courage, but these are different ways that I can share my message. And I want to share my message through music. It just scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And why does it scare the crap out of me? Because I still have that story of rejection that comes up in the work that I do with my clients, but like, it just progresses. So I was mentioning earlier, like, I want to know the emotional journey and the emotions behind the actions. So how we perceived the situation, not the situation. And so I perceived this situation in grade 9 of all of my girlfriends rejecting me at once. Like, my brother had left, the guy that I had a crush on for 6 years, he rejected me. Like, just like 10 things all at once of just hardcore rejection. And so, of course, that's painful. But my story progresses. And so my emotional thread that ties all of my skills and all of my titles together is this journey of rejection to connection. So if we think about it in business terms, we're trying to find clients and constantly dealing with rejection, trying to find them. And my approach is, how about we create clients by connecting with them? So then everything that I've learned has to do with that rejection to connection. Every title that I have has to do with that rejection to connection. And so then I can ask myself, how else can I share this message that is showcasing the whole and complete version of me? And if I love singing, why not sing? We have another speaker who loves art, and so she puts her messages through her art. I'm like, the amount of ways that we can share our message is exponential. We tend to focus on speaking, writing, podcasting. But like, what else is there? I'm so interested. So if you could share your message in a way that isn't speaking, writing, and podcasting, what would you choose to do?
I'm a painter.
Oh, are you? Okay.
I am an abstract painter because I basically make a mess on a canvas and call it art.
You make it. Do you do paint pours, or do you actually just
Sometimes.
paint? Okay.
Sometimes. And I think, you know, I created an art piece in, you know, my bedroom where I really do feel like it helped me manifest the relationship that I'm in currently, right? And art is incredibly powerful. And someday I'll have the capacity to help people with art therapy, because it is very freeing. And you know, we go through so many years of being told to color in the lines and to, you know, color the apple red, and, you know,
it's purple.
And curtailing the creativity that we are inherently born with to make us all in that box, right? Like we're all in that box. And I love to paint, and I'm critical of myself, right? Like I'm critical of myself because, you know, a lot of times I paint stuff and I'm like, ooh, you know, like,
and then you paint over it. Yeah.
And then I paint over it. And I have a couple, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that there's such a tremendous freedom in doing something like that. It can bleed over into other areas of life.
Definitely.
In a beautiful way, you know?
So then if you could have your dream stage, what would your dream stage look like to share your message?
Like, where would it be?
If you have a specific where, yeah, sure.
No, I don't think I
have. Or what would it look like? Where. What would it feel like? Who would be there? What would your experience be like getting there or doing it?
Have you, are you familiar with a Midsummer Night's Dream?
Yes, I played Peas Blossom.
Okay, so I was Titania.
Oh, I did not want all the lines.
So that fairy queen world.
Yes.
Right? I think is what I would kind of want it to have elements of, because I think that connection to nature, you know, the sacredness in nature, the ability for it to heal us and to teach us and to have that integrated onto a stage. I think that I would really love to move through different areas and show, you know, the beauty of different plants and how they can be used for health. And I haven't put a lot of thought into where, but I definitely feel very passionate about getting to audiences. And not necessarily doctors, right? Like I've been in practice for 17 years. I have a lot of knowledge to help educate about integrative medicine and functional medicine and injections. And, you know, I taught pharmacology and like all of these things to be able to teach other professionals. But I don't think that that's necessarily my calling. Like I want to really help. I do a lot of entrepreneurial groups. And so I like helping entrepreneurs understand how to unlock their vitality so that they can bring their visions to life with more power.
Yep.
So
that's where my expertise used to lie.
Yeah.
Until I saw more and more of people's trauma holding them back and them trying to share their story. But then when they're on that stage, they're speaking from pain. And so then the audience feels like it's their job to support the speaker. And I was like, no.
Interesting.
Yeah, emotionally. But
so
the
one of
person
the
on
things
the stage is supposed to be the expert. They're supposed to be the one supporting the audience.
Leading.
Yeah. So then when it's reversed and the audience is busy supporting the speaker emotionally, they actually have no idea what the speaker's saying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
so then I'm like, how do I shift that?
So I've been thinking a lot about one of the things that I wrote for the book opportunity that Corey put forth.
Are you in the new book?
I am. So I finished it and I sent it in this.
Oh, was that the Ken Honda and James Redfield?
I'm not sure which one it is. It was going to be Neil Donald Walsh, but I think that I missed that deadline.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all about how the different aspects of our spirit shined through our body for our ancestral trauma, our karma, our unconscious, our wounds, and how it filters through to be interpreted by our bodies. Right. And so what's going on with your liver? Right? Like, why are you having it's probably some ancestral trauma that we can trace back epigenetically, right? Into like different areas that you are here at this time in human conscious expansion to heal. Yeah. Right.
The liver is into anger. So I haven't just gone back and done that yet, because the last time I did ancestral work, I think it was 13 generations back. And there was this story that played out about abandonment where this young boy that I met, I found him in smoke, and his parents were trying to find him and they couldn't find him, but the smoke was so bad that they would have died continuing. So they went to go hide underneath the house. And I see this boy and we're just chatting. We go up to heal and he wants to go back. So we go back and we find his body. He didn't know he was dead. And I'm like, that was kind of intense.
Yeah, no, it's intense work. It's intense work. Yeah. I found one. I mean, it goes really deep when you start unlocking. I let go of all of my addictions almost 3 years ago, all at the same time. Right. Wow. Yeah. So I went completely sober, and I mean, even like shopping and social media and reading fiction and, like all of the things along with other, substances. And I was like, nope, I'm done. I need clarity. And it was over. And then my body was like, oh, great. Now we get to show you what you've been suppressing for your entire adult life. And so I couldn't eat anything. My hormones went crazy. My hair fell out. Like, that was one of the big journeys that I had as far as I was in the best shape of my life at the time that this happened. Yeah. And then I couldn't, I've been working myself back, healing from a place of clarity and strength, like going back down, like where is the wood rotted, right? Like, how deep down into that foundation, like how deep do those cracks go so that we can clean them out and then fill them in. And so
just don't fill them with insulation.
Right.
That's something to do.
I'll just suppress that right down. I don't need to pay attention to that. I'm good. Right. And so I found, I went into my stomach and I was like, why can't I digest anything? Right. Yeah. And so it's just like coming up as far as, different, it was wild. Yep. It was really
digest life.
Yeah. I couldn't digest life. It had to do with like betrayal, and it had to do with abandonment, and it had to do with like perfectionism.
Okay. Yeah. The next one I need to look up is, I got shingles last week, and today I accidentally scratched it. So then every time I move, I'm like, wince, because it's painful. I need to look that one up on the Alchemy of Healing with Louise Hay. Yep. Why shingles? Why now? It's actually spent Friday night in the emergency room while coaching at the Experts Boot Camp. It's just, it's fine. It's fine.
But it's just totally fine.
It's totally fine. I know, it's like my red flag word. But this weekend has been so fun and inspiring because so many people have had crap like that happen, like life-changing diagnoses.
Definitely.
Dying.
Definitely.
So much.
Absolutely.
And yet we were all there. We all showed up. We all supported each other. And even our energy level was up. Mm-hmm. And the last boot camp didn't feel the same as this. For some reason, this one was just so much better, even though we all felt crappier.
Right. Well, I think that's the healing process, though, right? Yeah. Like, stuff comes up out of the unconscious, out of old karma, out of like who knows where, right? The bowels of the universe and the collective unconscious. And then you're given the opportunity to heal that, right? So that you are free of it. And then it's not over. You go down another level and you're like, oh, great, right? Like, oh, this is going to be a really good one. This one's really deep.
Yeah.
So
that's where I feel I am right now. It's like I was having a hard time, and I'm very much an extrovert, and I absolutely love this community and having conversations with people. It recharges me.
Yeah.
So I knew that this was going to be like my energy boost that I needed, and I feel so much better. But then also my body's like, oh, you're ready for the next level, are you? And it was like shingles. I'm like, screw you.
And it gives you such a good experience. So like, how do you, not only the mental thoughts, Louise Hay is one of my favorites, right? Like, I think that it doesn't get any better. And so you've got that thought-based pattern as far as like what you've been telling yourself, what you've been thinking, like whether you're suppressing things, but then you also have the other aspect of, you know, how do you physically support your body? Because it's a mind-body connection. And so how do you, it's a lot easier to support both rather than just be like, I'm going to think different thoughts and like not support the physical body.
No. Okay, so we have about a minute left before
Awesome.
we're supposed to end the stream. So do you have a favorite takeaway from today's conversation? Usually I do this with my co-host, so it's really just our conversation.
Right. My favorite takeaway from this whole conversation was when you said that it was the journey from your head to your heart that made everything possible, right? Yeah. And I think that if everyone can make that journey from their head and the negativity and the self-limiting beliefs and the, you know, monkey mind into the heart, as far as why, what do they want to feel? What is their calling? What is their purpose? What is the song that they want to sing with their life? Then things just open up and shift and expand. And then you get to heal all the layers. Yay.
Yay. I love that too. Let's see. One of my biggest takeaways was, I'm trying to see who said it. Or maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. Oh, that's what it was. It was Lise? No, it wasn't Lisa. Oh, I didn't write down her name. Katharina. It was Katharina. She was saying on this journey of healing yourself, it's not about a commitment. It's about more of a devotion. It's like, oh, that word devotion. It comes with such love and caring behind it. That all of these fitness goals, these wellness goals, it's great to be committed to them and decide to do them. But to embody a devotion to yourself.
Imagine if you treated yourself like someone that you loved.
Exactly. That I'm so pretty.
I'm so beautiful. That's an amazing story. I'm going to use it.
I keep telling her that every once in a while when she doesn't feel confident. I'm like, you need to remember you are also this child.
Yes. Like, before the world puts all this stuff on you, you were that child.
This has been absolutely delightful.
It has, Laura.
I loved getting a chance to talk to you even more. And of course, Beth is one of my favorite people because she will go deep with me and I love it. So a lot of fun, a lot of insights today. And I just want to thank you to everyone listening. Please put in your comments, like, what are some of your fears when it comes to speaking or podcasting or writing a book, so that maybe I can address them more clearly and more with an individual perspective with some of our people tomorrow, as well as Friday. So would love to know some of that. Again, thank you, Dr. Heather. This was a delight. I will see everyone tomorrow back for day 4 of Blue Talk's Amplify Your Message, where we're on the same bat channels, same bat time. So that's 10 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. And in my time in Atlantic, that's 11 to 2. So much love. I'll see you again tomorrow. And then usually when I click the end stream, there's extra time. So I just like sing and dance and make stuff up. So bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.